I'll say the chapter alone where he had the big reveal, he returned, that was great on its own. I remember when that came out, the community was going absolutely wild. We have him looking at Omer and Kano oh yeah, my other students, my previous students, it's time to show you what my current one can do. That was cool. We did have him already re-mentioned earlier in the tournament during the Lu Tien fight.
That conclusion, when they are having a discussion in the Gakigahara forest, they're all camped together. We know, I think it was 6 and 5 that collaborated with one another, correct? I think it was 6 and 5.
I can't recall, but...
The other kid was the one with the glasses, though. I remember that. Yeah, actually it was 5. It was 5, because he was the one who constantly fought with 4, who was Oma's master. So it was 6 and 5. Mm-hmm. We know 6 and 5 at that point are what he's gonna do. I really don't know. I can't think of anything.
I want, as you probably know, Luhan to die.
Yeah.
Be the end of him.
Yeah.
Nico survives for a later point, and then Wulong leaves. We have his whole gauntlet, whatever fight with the Kengan Association next. That's what I want to happen. But I could see both of them surviving, and this ensuring the consecutors point does lead to something with Luhan. I don't think Nico is dying whatsoever. Nico disappointment.
Nico's not in danger. Alrighty then, we have Mysterious Weep here. Just like I said while we were off air, you probably don't need to introduce yourself because, again, there's probably a lot of overlap between the people that are subscribed to my channel and yours is way more bigger than mine. So you can just introduce yourself briefly and we'll just hit the ground running with this one.
How's it going? I'm the dude that's been yapping about Kengan for a number of years. Probably seen me around.
Yeah, I think you're my main inspiration for getting into Kengan Omega or just Kengan in general. I used to watch your videos a lot before I started my channel. You're probably... Yeah, I think you're the only guy from the OG era that's around. I think most of them got taken out by Shogakukan, assassinated.
Yeah, eliminated one by one.
Yeah. But anyways, that is it in terms of introductions. Again, gonna be very brief with it. Let's just talk about the man we're here to talk about here today. The last Nico, Tokita Nico. Probably one of the most controversial characters currently. And so, we'll just start off. What are your general thoughts on the character of Nico? If you were to give us an overview of how you see the character and how you feel about him, what would you say?
So, character-wise and his role within the entire Kengan story, since day one, I consider him the main villain of everything we've seen. From chapter 1, when we learnt about Omer's more so want for revenge for his master, that all connects to Nico. And then everything else we've learned since then has been him set up as more villainous than most others, per se.
Yeah.
And we even get that confirmed more so in his character profile, where it pretty much mentions that he's strong, top tier, but his primary skill lies in manipulating people, and we've seen that throughout.
Yeah. Anything else?
Considering we are over 500 chapters of Kengan, if you combine Ashura and Omega, I'm surprised we haven't gotten more from him by this point. With that introduction said, he's been around, technically mentioned since early days in Ashura, but only in Omega has he technically done anything, and even then it's on the lower end.
Yeah,
unfortunate, but the future is bright, hopefully.
The future is bright, hopefully. I'll just give my own brief thoughts on it. Yeah, I do understand when a lot of people, just like yourself, you probably the number one Nico agenda pusher that I know here. He is probably one of the most significant...
Probably.
Yeah, he is probably one of the most significant characters in this series. And as a villain, he's also probably one of, if not the most important villain in the entire series. As you said, he is probably the longest standing villain. We heard about him since Kengan Ashura and early Ashura at that. And yeah, that's really about it. My issues with Nico really come down to how the fan base views him and what they expect from him. But as a character on his own, I think he's pretty good. I think he does his role pretty well. He is a lot more slithery than I somewhat expected him to be, but considering that he is a student of someone like Gaio Mukaku tends to make a bit more sense. But we'll probably get into the weeds of all that as we carry on talking about Nico. That's basically my general thoughts on him, as someone who really takes every single chance he can to make fun of him, being a bit more honest and also being, holding back a lot more since I'm directly talking to the biggest Nico Glazer. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good character.
Let it all out as we discuss.
Yeah, no, don't
the
worry.
The Nico slander can be accepted to a degree, especially of recent.
Yeah, I don't know, And you know what the funny thing is about that? I don't think it's over. I think it only gets worse. But we'll get into that one. I guess the second thing that we're going to talk about is what you mentioned earlier and what I also talked about. Nico being one of the most significant characters, but also his presence in the story itself. Because I think that this does kind of impact how we view the character, because he was supposed to be, to a certain extent, at least if we're looking at like early Ashura, you would get the idea that Nico would have been a main antagonist in Kengan Ashura. He just had that vibe until we heard that he was supposedly dead. We didn't really see much of him in that series. But now, considering he survived and he's in Omega, I found it very interesting that Sandrovich has sort of put him in a very interesting spot in the series. Like, yes, there's a lot to expect out of him, but he hasn't been put in the best position, mainly because of the characters that are around him when he is the most active right now. It doesn't help that we have characters like Shen Wulong around, who basically is a god of the verse and who's basically running the show for the most part. When
he's stolen all the aura from every seemingly strong character.
Everyone. It's like, okay, you have such a dominant presence within the story. And before he was introduced, Edward was around. I think he was another character who sort of had that aura, especially when we started to see him, fight a lot more. And Nico, he was literally stated by Mutemba that, he was probably as powerful as him. So that could have been a very good opportunity to utilize him there. But what do you think in terms of how Nico has been used in the story as a whole?
So with that, it's important to note, during Kengan Ashura, we had Oma's goal of getting revenge. His revenge at first was pointed at Genzan, as from his knowledge, Genzan was the one who killed his master. Then when meeting Kiryu and as the story progressed, Oma got his memories back. Further interactions with Kiryu and us as the readers learned about the true flashback with the two Nikos, where the Tiger Nico, the other Nico, Six, whatever you want to call him, was really the main one that resulted in Oma's master's death. So all that initial goal could be pointed towards him. And then the unclear nature of whether or not he's alive. We learned from Kiryu that he landed a fatal shot on Oma's master. Then Genzan pulled up to finish the fight after Nico also knocked out Raging Out Oma due to the Tiger Nico once again. But we had the arrival of the worm during the Annihilation tournament, where they pretty much referenced the tiger. At that point, it was talking about Nico, how they got the advance, and that was pretty much foreshadowing that he's still alive and indeed setting him up as the main villain at that time, particularly with the Tiger Vessel stuff mentioned with the final chapter of Kengan Ashura with the introduction of Edward, Ziyuji, and later we learned was Faye.
Yeah, just coming in on that one, I do know while in Kengan Ashura, while the Cats Annihilation tournament was actually happening during that time, and I think, what was this dude's name? The one who has a scar on his face. I forgot his name, even though he's dead now. He is irrelevant. When his forces were going around trying to pick off the fighters and he tried to take over the tournament or take over the Kengan Association by force.
Hayami, or the old Hayami.
Yeah, the old Hayami. I think it was one of the people that he had hired that was one of Nico's students, right? Because I remember he's the one who mentions the Tiger's Vessel as well.
Nico had two main students pull up on the Annihilation Tournament. The first one was Randro, which Oma used the Demon's Bane on after waking up from his like coma post Ryan fight.
Oh yeah.
And the second one was the dude with the sword who was like fighting Cosmo, Gao Lang, and all the others.
Yeah,
the whole way.
Yeah, he ended up surviving, but he gets killed by Faye later on.
Yeah. And then of course we had Kano and then Kiryu also connecting to Nico.
Yeah.
Revealed throughout the tournament as well.
Yeah, I would say with Ranjo, there was probably the biggest sign that Nico was probably around, especially if they're using, the advance and things like that. That would probably be the biggest hint that he was probably still alive. And it doesn't help that his death wasn't confirmed, because in that case, chances are the character is alive. That's why I think, Nico number 3, I would lean towards, hey, he's probably alive somewhere. That's what I would, if I don't see a body, I'm assuming he's gonna pop up again. That's basically how I think about it. But yeah, you can carry on.
Another issue was with like knowing if the Tiger Nico was alive is a lot of the flashback was told from Kiryu's perspective, and that was when he was like crashing out schizo. Like we don't know what was real or what wasn't at the time. On reflection and based on further reveals, we know, but at the time we're like, is what this guy is saying the truth? Because he's yapping about Oma's master being evil, manipulating him, and then still seeing him inside Yamashita and all that. So a lot of stuff was unsure until we got his big return during the Purgatory and Kengan tournament.
Yeah. That's a very interesting point when it comes to Setsuna being an unreliable narrator. I never really thought about it that way when we got his flashback, because there is an honesty in terms of how he interprets his own actions, in terms of like him wanting to basically be killed by Oma and all this stuff, and the manipulation he suffered under Nico. So I don't know, I guess I never had that doubt, but I guess if that doubt was out there, that's very interesting. I guess, would we go to like Kengan Omega to talk about what he's done in Kengan Omega, or are we still on Ashura?
Well, we'll just mention what we did see in Ashura when we did actually see the other Nico. That was all during Oma's flashback, where we saw him, of course, give Oma the advance with that strange punch, whatever you want to call it. Hard to describe.
Yeah, that's probably one of the weirdest moments in the series, because I remember seeing that for the first time. So sorry, we were going on another tangent, and thinking to myself, either there's like a button on Oma to turn on the advance, or like you could somehow punch someone in a certain way to activate it, which is weird. But what do you think was going on there?
The strange thing is, even though we've got like the Guy Mukaki flashback and the young Nico flashback, we still don't know how like the characters get the advance or like learn it.
Yeah.
So all we know is that punch is the way you get it.
Yeah, but that is true. But okay, do we both agree that the advance was Gaio Mukaku's secret technique?
Yes.
Okay, I guess if it were that simple, something tells me it wouldn't take like, well, it wasn't that easy with Oma as well, since he had already mastered the Nico style. Maybe that was a prerequisite, but it is still a very weird moment, because it sounds like conceivably it's so simple that you should be able to, I don't know, do that to anyone, potentially.
You could say it's like boiled down to Nico's, like his whole thing is running experiments, so him just running around tapping people and giving them this like overpowered technique that's, self-harming is very in character. But it could be just the case that Sandro wasn't really going to dive into it that deep at the time, or wasn't going to expand on it like he has since then, so it kept it quite simple.
Yeah, because I think till this day we have not gotten any elaboration. So I guess we'll carry on with that, but you were still talking about the flashback itself, because I'm sure you're going to mention about how, Nico number 4, or I usually separate them by calling one Nico and the other one Tokita. How he ended up getting his ass whooped by him even after Oma, weakened his own master. You were gonna mention that part, right?
Yeah. So apart from that, we saw the Taiga with Kiryu, him pulling up on Kiryu when he's watching Oma train, and then eventually manipulate him, train him in the Nico style somewhat, and then tell him to seek out Genzan after that. Pretty much setting up Kiryu's whole story. Then of course we had the Nico vs Nico fight, which we don't get much in the manga. It's only like a few panels, and that is told from Kiryu's perspective. But in the anime, surprisingly, they expanded on it somewhat, where we see the other Nico land like one of the phase techniques we saw in Omega on him, which was apparently the fatal blow that he was able to land. But Oma's master pretty much, beat him up and he ran away, seemingly.
Yeah, one of the very first L's and indications that, he wasn't that guy, although, yeah, in Kengan Ashura, I think he was a pretty good shadow villain in terms of how he was implemented, how he was slowly revealed, behind the memories, behind most of these events and orchestrating them. I would say he was implemented pretty well in Kengan Ashura, with, of course, the side note of we don't get a conclusion for his character in that series, really. He just disappears or seemingly gets a fatal wound and dips. But you got any separate thoughts on that?
I'll just say that in Ashura alone, if we didn't know Omega turned out the way it did, he was set up as a decently good villain to upcome. He wasn't directly in your face everywhere, but he was foreshadowed and set up enough where most people who have read somewhat deep into the series would understand that oh yeah, this guy's gonna be the main dude coming up.
Yeah, I think it was, in terms of characters set up properly, or at least in a memorable fashion, I would think Nico, Gaio, Mukaku. Those are the big ones. And that's funny that I remember those two specifically. But just going on to Kengan Omega, because I think we're pretty fine with Nico in Ashura. When he comes back in Omega, I'm just gonna start off with my thoughts, right? Because mostly we don't see him around. We see, of course, the person who is Fei Wangfang. We see the guy who's he's gonna be the Tiger's Vessel, who is Fei Wangfang. And when Fei Wangfang reveals himself as, Nico's last student, Nico also reveals himself at the exact same time. Now, here's where I'm going to start talking about why this might be the biggest missed opportunity for Sound of Witch in terms of writing, because I think Ashura's good, Ashura's fine, but it would seem like in Kengan vs Purgatory, if there was a better time to have him as a main antagonist, this was going to be the moment, because everyone that is relevant to this man's story was in the place, around the competition. Setsuna was there, Oma was there, Agito was there, his last student, Fei Wangfang, was there. It seems like the stars aligned a bit too much in that moment, that it wouldn't seem like a huge missed opportunity when it happened, but considering where I think his trajectory is going from now on, I think this will turn out to be the biggest missed opportunity, because he basically makes his appearance. He one-shots Mutemba off screen, and that's really it. And I don't know, do you have any different interpretations from how I view that entire portion for Nico?
I'll say the chapter alone where he had the big reveal, he returned, that was great on its own. I remember when that came out, the community was going absolutely wild. We have him looking at Oma and Kano oh yeah, my other students, my previous students, it's time to show you what my current one can do. That was cool. We did have him already re-mentioned earlier in the tournament during the Lu Tien fight, where we got his flashback, of course him using the Formless. So we saw his younger face for the first time via a flashback, and then the current state where he one-shot Mutaba, watched Faye die, where he just says, yes, I have all the data I need, my Nico style can evolve, something along the lines of that, and then he just walks away, nothing happens.
Yeah,
So I would say introduction cool, but missed opportunity in reflection. We could have had Oma, we could have had something happen at more than what we got.
Well, considering considering, you know, Nico is as strong as Edward at the time. Although, do you think otherwise? Like, at that specific moment? Because they're both worm heads. They hold a similar rank. Mutemba compares them as well. What do you think?
I'll say, because the way Nico's been set up since then, so on reflection, I'll say Edward, I would rank, like on a tier list, I would rank Edward as stronger, but within the same tier, so close enough.
Oh, okay. That's wild. I would think Nico is stronger, but hey, it is what it is.
My one issue is showing wise at that point, Edward, as we know, running the gauntlet on the Kuro clan is objectively better than anything Nico had done at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, at this rate...
And I would also say, yeah, like one-shotting Mutaba is good, but you know, if he pulled up a bit closer, bro would have got shot.
Yeah, I mean, Mutemba has... Come on. Mutemba would have shot Nico? Let me hear the number one Nico supporter say that. Please say that.
Hey, I'm a Mutaba supporter since day one as well.
What? There's no way.
Drip Overlord.
Like, this man has fallen off since Kengan. In Kengan Omega, he's just taken L after L after. Name a good showing from Mutemba.
Understanding that it's not wise to throw hands with Wulong. That's a incredible showing.
So knowing when he's going to get his ass handed to him by the strongest in the verse, that's the biggest W he's gonna get?
Yeah, he can perceive Wulong's strength while most others can't. So
come on. Zai Ji can perceive Shen Wulong's strength. Bruh, what is
the
this?
Dragon.
The dragon that was born as a what? A rat? Or is it the other way around? No, it's the rat that was born as a dragon, actually, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, coming back to Nico, I'll say setup good, but on reflection, I wish he would have done more.
Yeah, I guess... Yeah, the stars aligned way too much in my opinion. Cause like, conceivably, if he had fought Oma, Agito, or Setsuna, he would have been able to beat all of them. That would have been probably his best showing. And then he could dip. That's probably how I would think about it. Just have him come in, they try to corner him, he beats them up, and we see you next time. No, he just goes.
Yeah, they could have done that. Like, one issue I do have though, we know Oma's original goal was like revenge, but after getting memories back and the whole Kiryu stuff during Kengan Ashura, it seems as though he doesn't really care about that to any degree. Like, even though he was like annoyed and pissed that Nico was there, it's not like he came running after him like the second Kuro Ryan saw Edward Wu.
Well, yeah, in terms of like bloodlust, Ryan's in a different league. Like, this man will basically kill someone for little to no reason. Oma's slightly different. He probably needs a very good reason, but there's also the fact that, as he mentioned in, I think the chapter before, it's 312, I think it is, where he's talking with Setsuna. He talks about the fact that his master as well is playing a major influence in terms of how he thinks about getting revenge, because he probably wants to kill, you know, Nico whenever he sees him, but there is, you know, his master at his side who told him, hey, don't kill anyone, you know? Like, there's that conflict of interest that's happening with Oma that we don't know exactly how that will play out, because Oma himself doesn't know how that will play out, but it is very interesting that it's a bit consistent, because once he gets those memories, his temperament does kind of change, and that type of attitude, I think we see it more consistently when he remembers his master in that way. Now, will he carry on being like that? We'll see. But yeah, I get your point. Oma doesn't have, strong feelings to avenge, you know, his master against someone who is probably the most evil person in the series. Like, barring, like, let's say Gaio Mukaku, like, he's pretty, I think he's worse than Gaio Mukaku at this rate. So,
I would agree he's worse.
Yeah,
yeah.
So, okay, so we've talked about his appearance in KVP. Oh yes, actually, let me ask you this.
We should mention Faye.
Well, we'll get to Faye. I wanted to go back all the way back to, I think it was Lutien. What do you think?
Yep.
What do you think Nico's idea was with Lutien? Because it's the first time we see him do something like give a person who shouldn't have the removal at that point. Like, to what end do you think that would actually go? Or what was he trying to prove?
I think, yeah, from Nico's perspective, I think it was 100% just experimenting. He had no care about Lu Tien whatsoever. He was trying out different training methods through the Gu rituals, Kanai Gito, where he had learned part Nico style, part formless, and then the Lu Tien time where they would solely focus on the formless style, and then on top of that, let's give him the Gu ritual. He approached Edward Wu to learn how to get it activated or give it to people somewhat, so see how it goes. Purely experimentation. He has no care for Lu Tien, didn't consider him as like relevant, so that's my view on that pretty much.
Yeah, I have a more wilder theory on it. Although I don't think it will ever pay any dividends. I think Nico was trying to go for a proof of concept in terms of that the Wu clan might actually turn out to be, and this is probably one of my bigger theories in terms of where I think the Wu clan as a whole come from. They probably come from a successful Gu ritual victim, and I think that's more consistent with the backstory of, what's the name of the first Wu that we see?
Oh, the one that like came out of the ground or whatever.
Yeah. Actually, talking about coming out of the ground, does that sound familiar?
Like Shen Wulong or?
No, it's actually Agito. Remember when Metsudo ended up finding Magito? I'm saying Agito, yeah.
Yeah.
He had to dig him from underground. Yeah, that's why I was thinking to myself, Nico probably knows something about the Wu clan, or is probably trying to put something together in terms of what the implications are. Because I don't think it's a mistake that Lu Tien's opponent turns out to be Agito, right? Especially when you draw the connection that deep.
Yeah.
And then there's the fact that when Agito got out of the Gu ritual, it never completed. He's not exactly a successful, victim, but he's the closest in terms of what we can see. And what we see with him is the split personality type of thing, where his other personality is basically an instinct that just went around defending itself and basically making sure that Agito survived by killing the people around him. That also sounds like exactly what the first Wu was doing, because when he gets up from the ground, he goes around and he starts wreaking havoc. And so I know it's a little bit of a weird, a weird little plot point, but I think it is very interesting that maybe Nico is onto something in terms of what's going on with the Wu clan. But any thoughts on that crackhead, that crackpot theory?
I would say it's pretty interesting. I don't think it's gonna go exactly like that, mostly due to the first Kure already being mentioned by like Wulong as he giving him the memory transfer thing back in the day, like 5,000 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So it seems as though his relevance or plot point has been negated by Wulong, like most things at this point.
I mean, maybe it has been, but it's never too late to merge these things. All things seem to connect back to the connector. So
yeah, well,
he's
the connector for a reason.
Yeah, he's the connector for a reason. But yeah, as you
could be.
Yeah, no, carry on.
I will say that for Nico and his experiments through the Gu rituals, he did do multiple with the creation of Fae, or I don't know if it was multiple or one extra large one where I had thousands of people participating, and that's how Fae came to be. And then giving Fae the next step of his Gu ritual training, the evolved Nico style, and then the divine demon, which is pretty much the advanced and the fallen demon combined and amped up even more.
Yeah,
which is just, again, as we saw once Fae was taken out or self-destructed, more data for him to evolve the Nico style more. So a simple experiment once again.
Yeah, I guess in terms of it not being deep, I do understand that. Okay, since we've already on Fei Wang Fan, what did you want to say about him? At least in terms of his relationship to Nico.
So I'll say at the time, the way they handled Faye was disappointing, but on reflection, it doesn't bother me, and I think for the sake of Nico, it makes more sense it went down that way. Like, one fight, self-destruct, used as a pawn, that's it.
Yeah, from my perspective, when it comes to Faye, I think most people that I've heard that say they're disappointed with how that ended up turning is people that think, you know, Faye Wangfang probably should have fought Oma. From that perspective, I think there's a reason why Sandrovich ended up doing what he did with Faye Wangfang, because from a narrative level, it's important to remember that Faye Wangfang could never become the Tiger's Vessel, because now we know what it is, right? We know for sure that the Tiger's Vessel is actually, you know, Shen Wulong and Oma, the clone of Shen Wulong. And once you have that in perspective, Faye and all the other students were never in the competition to take that spot from Oma, because it's impossible to do that. And so if he were to fight Oma, it would almost make it seem like he actually stood a shot at being the Tiger's Vessel when he never really did. So that would be my, let's say, it's not an objection, but it's something to keep in mind. What I do like with what they did, though, is the fight between him and Wakatsuki. I still think it's one of the best fights in the series. I think the ending is a bit controversial because, of course, Faye Wangfang ends up dying, but I find it very interesting that he fights someone who he deems as irrelevant in a competition he really has no stake in, but is not willing to, let's say to lose. Yeah, he's not really in it. He doesn't want to lose, but he doesn't think the tournament and his match means much of anything. And despite all of that, or in spite of all of that, he ends up dying, which I think is very funny. There's a little bit of an irony in terms of how he ends up turning out. And of course, Faye's a piece of shit. We also know that as well. So, hey, that also plays a role. But yeah, I do understand when people say Faye was a little bit of a missed opportunity, but I don't know. If he had lived from that point on, it would seem like the logical conclusion of what would happen is that he would probably just want revenge on Nico, and then Nico would just end up killing him.
Yeah, it's questionable what they would do with his character if he lived past that. It'd just be another, like, Lutien situation, potentially.
Yeah, oh man. And that ended horribly.
Yeah.
That actually ended horribly.
An Akoya victim.
An Akoya?
in the sewers.
Hey, listen! Don't mess with the Justice Boy, I'm telling you.
Hey, I was a Justice Boy hater for years, but I got converted.
Oh yeah, it took him, what, throwing 2 grenades to do that? No wait, he threw 1. Yeah, he threw 1. And he screamed, "Justice!" Oh my goodness.
A random Zenkai boost against Willem out of nowhere.
Yep, that's what ended up happening.
Like, oh, I don't know why, but he just got stronger. He just,
He just got stronger.
Just got faster and stronger.
Knocked out William just like that. Although, you know what's interesting about that? Is that with Akoya, when Ryuki fights him, the first time he fights him, he compares Akoya to Gayumukaku. Or to his grandpa. He calls him grandpa at that point. Which sounds kind of crazy. Because we know how powerful Gayumukaku is. Because it's like, there's no way Akoya is as strong as Gayumukaku. This man fought Oma, Retsudo, and who else? Koga. He fought them 3-on-1 and was about to kill Koga and Retsudo. Now, it's arguable whether he would have beaten Oma.
Yeah.
But it's like, my man was taking a 3v1 pretty well. You actually think Akoya could do that? And then, of course, the justice moment happens. And you know what? Maybe with a few grenades, he can actually do it.
Don't forget, he's threatened Koga as well, so he's gonna pull up and kill the protagonist at some point.
Nah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think his biggest fight, or the only fight he really has left at that point, is against Ryuki. Because he's the character he's tied to the most, really. But I think it's very interesting that, because I already have like a video on Akoya that I did. I think the reason he's targeting Akoya is because the reason why he's targeting Koga I think, is that what I said? Why Okoye is targeting Koga?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the reason why he's targeting him is because there might be something to what Koga did that triggered Okoye. That might be, you know, revealing of what ended up happening in his past, because we know next to nothing about Okoye, right? But I'll leave that for the video itself. The Justice Boy is goated. How did we get to Okoye?
Grenade throwing at Nico and Gilbert.
Oh yeah. How do you think they survived that?
Raw durability.
Raw durability! Good lord! Okay. I guess it's possible. Man, you know, Kengan scaling can get kind of whack, so it is possible, but do you notice that Gilbert is the one who has, I think he changed his shirt after they had to go back to Shen Wulong and basically admit that they failed?
I did not notice that.
Yeah.
Maybe he's the one who, you know, jumped over the grenade.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, because I think Gilbert Wu has a healing factor. It's wacky.
Possible.
It's wacky, but it almost makes too much sense. Like, when he refers to rejuvenation, what the hell is he talking about? Cause like...
Yeah, it can't be just like getting access to memories or anything like that. It has to be something more.
Yeah, cause the first time he uses it, we don't see it, of course. He uses it against his uncle, who is a blade user. So he probably got cut a lot. But we don't see any cuts at all. And he says he was pretty tough as well. Then possibly we see it. I think he used it, you know, to save him and Nico. But we are going way too far from the plot. This is about Nico.
Right, let's go back to the Kengan and Purgatory tournament. So after Faye is gone, we have the Nico scene. We have him one-shot Mutaba and then seemingly just disappear.
Yeah.
At the time, I was hoping, and a lot of us were hoping, that Joji and Cosmos Master would pull up on him, because at the same time when that was happening, they were like walking around, but they ended up walking into Zia G instead.
Yeah, they found Zia G and they stayed with his ass. So, you know, it is what it is.
It almost happened.
It almost happened.
But
yeah, no, carry on.
I will say, you could say the downfall of Nico happens pretty much in line with the introduction of Shen Wulong, as we have the whole Edward versus Kure fight, where Edward is of course killed and all that, but we have them talk about, oh yeah, Nico, that guy, he's just as strong as Edward. And they also mention like Yarn with the blacked out silhouette. It's like, oh, I wonder how strong the head of the worm is. And then we get the reveal of Yarn, and then Yarn kind of gets overshadowed by the introduction of Shen Wulong and along line with everyone else as well.
Yeah, I think he's revealed right after Gilbert. So when the arc ends, it's almost like, you know, the people that died or got defeated are somewhat replaced. So you have Edward being replaced by, let's say, Gilbert, and then Zai G is out of the picture for the most part from that point on as well. So you could say Yan probably fills in for Zai G at that point. And then you just have Shen Wulong, who, yeah, we all know how that turns out. I guess...
Yeah, this changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, it is what it is. I guess let's talk a little bit about the flashback, the Gakigahara Forest flashback. Before we go, you know, back to the Shen Wulong entire situation, what did you think that flashback did for you in terms of Nico's character?
So at the time, we've been wanting that like reveal of what happened in the forest since for years at that point.
Yeah.
So we know, most of us came to the assumption that the Tiger Nico did something to betray them, may have killed other Nikos, and most of that was pretty much confirmed. We don't really get like that much in regards to why Nico did it. Like, why would he betray Mukaku? How did he first became aware of like the worm? How did he become aware of like Shenmue Long? We still need stuff like that revealed, because going into the training with Mukaku, it seems as though he was already on the other side, or, you know, doing his own thing. He never had the intention to be like the other Nikos.
Well, actually, I think I have a pretty good idea of how things went wrong in that case, because a funny thing about that situation is that while the chapters were coming out, I remember predicting that it was Nico number 6 who was the traitor. And the way I figured this out, it's gonna be really funny. Do you remember the panel where they show all the Nikos?
Yep.
So we see all 7 of them in the panel. They're not in order, but if you count them all, well, you don't need to necessarily count them, but if you count them all from like right to left, the way you read a manga, the last Nico, which is currently his epithet, the last Nico is actually the last Nico to the left. Now, I found that very funny. Like, you can check it yourself. That's how it was. That's how I was like, okay, it makes the most amount of sense that it's probably him, considering he's that far back. But going...
My thing was, when we first saw that panel, because none of them like really looked like the other Nico.
Yeah, because we couldn't see the eyes.
Covered up face due to his hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I guess it's him.
Yeah, I think that was done deliberately.
View of it.
Yeah, that it is what it is when it comes to that. But in terms of why he betrayed, I think it's because he found out about what Gaio Mukaku was doing with the other kids. That's why I think he ended up betraying Gaio Mukaku and the rest of the family. Now here's how I came to that conclusion. When they are having a discussion in the Gakigahara forest, they're all camped together. We know, I think it was 6 and 5 that collaborated with one another, correct? I think it was 6 and 5.
I can't recall, but...
The other kid was the one with the glasses, though, I remember that. Yeah, actually it was 5. It was 5, because he was the one who constantly fought with 4, who was Oma's master. So it was 6 and 5. Mm-hmm. We know 6 and 5 at that point are collaborating with one another. There doesn't seem to be a time in which they could have met up and actually formed the alliance, you know, before or after that point. So what I find interesting is that 5 specifically asks about the other kids. He's specifically like, hey, you know, father, what happened to the other kids? You know, they all left, they were all students, you know, what happened? And Gaio Mukaku, he shrugs it off. He's like, well, you know, I don't know where they are, they just left. And Nico number 6, the one that we currently have, the last Nico, is like, yeah, you know, they were brothers to us, you know. It would be pretty bad if something happened to them, or we're pretty worried about them. But he's looking at Gaio Mukaku when he says that. And I think that plays a primary cause for what's happening, because we find out, you know, where Gaio Mukaku was held up, that Gaio Mukaku had all those kids undergo a Gu ritual. Now, the missing key to all of this was going to be, okay, how does he discover this? How does Nico number 6 discover that the other kids are dead? And I think Lohan played a role in that. I think, because remember, they defect to the worm. So Lohan probably had a hand in basically Gaio Mukaku's plans, the demise of that plan, basically. So that's what I think ended up happening. That's how I think, because being betrayed by someone you consider your own father, doesn't that seem like a convenient story for Nico to have? Because that's the exact same thing he does to other people, right? If we're going with the idea that, you know, people that abuse other people, that treat other people badly, have themselves suffered under those things, then Nico's motivation and his actions really trace back to Gaio Mukaku in that way. So those are my thoughts in terms of, he found out what Gaio Mukaku was doing, probably said, fuck it, let me get 5 on my side because he's the most likely to actually believe me, since it was known that 5 probably didn't like Gaio Mukaku as much. The rest could probably defend him. So that's what I think ended up happening in the Gakigahara forest. Lohan tells Nico what's up. Nico finds out what's up, and that's how they end up deflecting. Because Nico himself says, because Gaimokaku asks, like, so are y'all worm members from the beginning? Or he assumes they were worm members from the beginning. But Nico corrects them. Or I think it's 5. He's like, no, we deflected recently. And if there has to be a very strong reason why they would defect recently, because they considered Gaimokaku as their father up until that point. So it has to be a strong reason. They can't just flip like burger patties. But
I'll say it like this. My theory with why 6 and 5, you could say as well, went against Mukaku pretty much boils down to something fairly simple. 6 was, like, his overall goal, I'll say, is gaining power, like being the strongest, you could say. That's why he's done all these experiments and, you know, gaining various data to evolve the Nico style, gaining Wulong's memories right now to get stronger and stronger. I believe he saw Mukaku during when he was in the inside as like the strongest guy around. So he'll play up the father role, he'll be with these other Nikos, he's getting stronger through it, but sometime that we haven't seen yet will likely be revealed in another flashback. He becomes aware of maybe Wulong or someone he views as much stronger than Mukaku, which does result in the betrayal in him turning to the worm side, as that's another path he can take in gaining power that is to a higher level.
Yeah, but...
And then he is involved in manipulating 5, because that's rooted in his character since the very beginning.
That's very interesting, but like that doesn't explain how he gets into the habit of doing ghoul rituals and manipulating children. Like deflecting because you want more power and killing kids. There's a gap. You know what I'm saying? There's a gap there.
Yeah,
that's
it could
like
be this. Yeah. The issue is we haven't learnt, like, that was the flashback for the Nikos. We haven't had the flashback for 6 himself. Like, we don't know what he was doing prior to joining up with the Nikos, and even after that, a big span of time before the stuff we learnt in Oma's flashback.
Well, yeah, but like, okay, if we were to think about where he could have learned about the ghoul rituals in the first place, the only other place is the worm. So, yeah, or Gaimokaku himself, actually. So, he has to get that from someone. He either gets it from his father, or he gets it from someone in the worm. We know Yan probably doesn't practice any of that. We don't know about the Westwood faction. Luhan, I don't know if the Death Dealers are really undergoing, you know, ghoul rituals. I think they're probably clones. But where would you get it? Is my question.
Probably just the worm. Because we need to remember that the flashback for the young Nikos is like, how many years ago? Like 30 years ago plus at this point?
Yeah,
Like compared to the current day?
Yeah.
So Yan wouldn't have been around. Edward.
Yeah, Yan wouldn't have been around. Yeah, true.
We can't say if he would have been around. We know Wulong.
Well, the Westwood faction, I think they were.
Should have been around.
I think the Westwood faction would probably be a part of the worm at that point, because they follow Shen.
Yeah,
Wulong.
the previous era would have been around, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Of like the previous head of the worm, Yan's father, the previous like Westwood faction leader at the time, whoever it was, would have been the one in control, and that could have been how the other Nico became aware.
Yeah. Although I think it's more likely that it's Gaimokaku who exposes that, you know, to him. But I guess it's also possible that he just deflected just for the sake of getting power. I just think it's so unlikely, mainly because, you know, there's no need to kill the other Nikos at that point. You know, there's no reason to even kill Mukaku as well. You could just dip. Why try to betray and kill all the other Nikos and potentially kill Gaimokaku? What drives you to then do that? I guess that's something else that I find a bit weird. I think the fact that he probably felt betrayed by Gaimokaku once he discovered, you know, the corpses of his brothers probably also traumatized by that as well. That to me seems to fit the picture a bit more.
I will say something that is somewhat strange is while the last Nico is connected to the worm, he's not really part of the worm. He's still viewed as like an outsider that's just around, like doing his experiments. He's regarded like on the same tier as like Gilbert, Yarn, etc. But he's not viewing Wulong as in the same regard. He's an outsider that's running experiments for them.
Yeah,
hanging around.
He doesn't have, let's say, the same veneration that the other heads have. Of course, excluding Lohan, right? Like, Gilbert...
Yeah.
Probably, he's like a Wulong fanboy, right? Edward was probably a Wulong fanboy. He's
Wulong as a god, pretty much.
Yeah. This man, he's bowed to him before, actually. We saw that in a panel.
He literally views him as a god.
Yeah. Like, that's kind of crazy.
God is like... Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like even then, his connection to the word is still like different and just for himself.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about when it comes to the Kakigahara Forest flashback?
I will say, like as we mentioned much earlier, from Kengan Ashura, Gaomukaku was like one of the characters most people wanted to learn the most about. And then when we did get his full story, it wasn't exactly what people wanted, but it was cool that he was that evil, corrupt, wanted revenge for decades.
I don't know if this is a hot take.
For the sake of that.
I don't know if this is a hot take. I think Gaomukaku is probably the best character in Kengan, in my opinion. I don't know if I would say he's the best villain because he has a horrible success rate, but like almost everything this man did failed. But as a character, I like him a lot more than other characters in this story. Even though he is a scumbag, I think people were not expecting him to be such a scumbag. Like there is no going around.
Set him up as like this noble figure that's like trying to unite the inside. But then when we learn the truth, he's like, he's just using everyone and everything for his own, improvements to get closer to his goal. He does no care about anyone else.
Well, there is that. I would say you could probably get a lot of people to cheer Gaomukaku on if he had like that hardcore, I want revenge, I'm pushing through, I'm being a badass, I'm gonna get these people, or kind of like a Garp from One Piece, or let's say a Garp that just wants revenge from One Piece, or any of these other badass old man characters. You could probably write him like that.
Yes.
The problem is the objectively horrible stuff he does, where it's like, bro, there's no excuse for that. And then there is the scumbag behavior that even he doesn't justify, bro. He's like, yeah, it is what it is. I'm a piece of shit. I'm a fraud. That's how it is. And you're like, damn. Like... Kind
of goated for that, though.
I mean, killing kids?
Accepting what he is like, yeah, unlucky. It is what it is.
What?
What are you going to do about it?
Okay, now
he wants
that's
that revenge for his clanmate.
Yeah.
Going down the path of evil.
Oh my goodness, bro. But funny thing about that is that in the flashback for the Kakigahara Forest, since it seems like we're kind of getting out of that, Gaomukaku does say that he wanted his students to grow up to be like big villains. Like he literally calls them, like he says something about them being villainous. And I found that very funny because the way he says it, the way Gaomukaku talks, it seems so nice and casual, and he can also be very manipulative in how he says something. But sometimes he just tells you what he actually means, and you probably don't pay too much attention to it because of the way he says it. But from that perspective, it seems like Nico number 6 is the spiritual successor of Gaomukaku, and it turns out to not be 4 or Oma's master, which I think is very funny because I think that probably played a part in how people would view him, because they would probably look at Oma's master and be like, maybe Gaomukaku would be a more hardcore version of him, maybe a bit more rougher around the edges. Maybe he'll say, nah, you can kill them, but he would kind of be like that. No, turns out he's more like the last Nico. That's pretty funny, but yeah.
It is coming back to your like original theory, I just pulled up his character profile. It does say the person he hates the most is Guy Mukaku.
Yeah.
And the person he acknowledges is number 4, Oma's master. So he has respect for him, but hates Mukaku.
Yeah. I still
And
think
he's
that
the most like Mukaku.
Yeah, he's the most like him. Which, again, talking about the abuser and abuse or the victim situation, right? There are usually 2 scenarios that the victim goes down. Majority of people tend to like basically pivot very far away from the mentality of the person who abused them. So they probably go to the other extreme. So if you have like a parent that used to beat you up a lot, you don't beat up your kids at all. You just don't like violence in general. But then you have those few that become just as bad, if not worse, than the person who abused them. So
The passing down of evil.
yeah, there's that. I think we're pretty much done with the Gakigahara forest at that point. Because I think once we get that flashback, Gaio Mukaku dies shortly after to Shen Wulong, which again takes away a lot of spotlight from Nico. Because here's something interesting, because this actually kind of segues in well with what we were saying earlier on. Nico said he would be the one to kill Gaio Mukaku. He's the one who's like, next time I see you, you're dead. Or I would have surpassed you. Guess who gets to him first? Shen Wulong kills him, and Nico only gets to see his corpse cut in half. And that's it. My man's like, well, that's kind of pathetic. And we just move on.
I will say something unfortunate for the last Nico is prior to that flashback in that arc, his whole thing closely connected to the Nico style, like his path of the Nico style, his way of evolving it, whether through experiments and upper means. But then when we learned that the Nico style wasn't all that it was meant to be, from the creator Guy Mukaku, it kind of took away from the last Nico's character quite a bit, as his whole thing was the Nico style. But now that we learned the truth about it, it's like, oh, so it's not really all that. Why is he so dedicated to enhancing it and glazing it, teaching it to all of his students, using Faye for the sake of evolving it, calling himself the real Nico, and just setting himself as like the only successor of it, you could say?
Well, I think ultimately it's because just like 4, he believes in the Nico style, basically. They just have a difference in philosophy, right? In terms of like the approach. But he probably, because like that's the only thing he has left from, let's say, his father, but also from his brothers who attempted to go down that path as well. Like that's all he's got, right? So I think he wants to build on that from that perspective. Because remember, with Gaio Mukaku, and I'm kind of using Gaio Mukaku as a reference point for Nico, because I think that there's going to be overlap in their stories. But with Gaio Mukaku, what we tend to see is that he makes a lot of sacrifices, and he sort of kind of integrates those sacrifices into the way he fights. So he has a lot of martial arts in his bag and stuff that he can do, and he doesn't give up because of certain things. At least he doesn't give up on the ultimate goal, at least until, of course, he meets up against Shen Wulong. By that point, he's accepted that he's never going to be able to kill Shen Wulong. But we have a similar mentality of trying to build up on the things that, you've sacrificed for. That type of idea. But yeah.
I get that.
Yeah. But yeah.
What's the next? We have the flashback. What's the next point we have from Nico? Is there anything before the Luhan and Nico team up?
Well, there is the fight between him and Setsuna. And that is probably I would say that fight is the moment the narrative kind of shifts around Nico. Because I remember when that fight was still happening, I started getting comments on my video about how Nico was being disappointing. And I made defense videos for him. Fraud Watch! Yes! He was on Fraud Watch during that time. And it's so funny because it only got worse as the fight went on. Oh my goodness.
I have my perspective and like way to defend Nico, but give me your thoughts first.
He is a fraud. I'm just kidding. I guess one of the things that I sort of tried to defend Nico, let me see if I can remember what my defense was. Okay, there are a few things happening here in terms of the expectations for Nico. I think the expectations are a bit too overblown, and I think that leads to the disappointment, right? And that's the issue I sort of ended up talking about later on. But in terms of this fight itself, really, I think Nico ended up goofing around a bit too much and did not recognize the very real danger that Setsuna posed to him until, of course, he was on the ropes and he had no choice. But that's about as simple as it gets, really. There's really nothing else that I could see that it goes down.
Yeah, I'll say at the start of the fight, I think it's pretty objective and clear that Nico was messing around. The techniques he was using was like pretty goofy compared to anything prior. Like, it was clear he was playing with Kiryu, and then as it got more serious, as he got damaged, caught off guard, he had to, lock in and finish the fight while getting, decently injured.
Yeah.
I'll also say a lot of the fan base didn't really rate Kiryu properly. Like, he is still one of the top tiers. Like, yes, during Ashura, he was destroyed by Kuroki, but that's Kuroki. We literally see him fight, yes, a nerfed, not trying Shenmue Long, but perform better than anyone else we've seen. Just his first, fight back. Kuroki will always be him, alongside having knowledge of the Koei style prior, which had given him a massive advantage going into the Kiryu fight. Then we know Kiryu was defeated by Oma. That Kiryu was injured, going schizo, and Oma literally had to use the Demon's Bane on him, so it's not like he's weak to any sense. And then when we do get Kiryu's first main fight, which is against Nico, he only kills Fodder Worm members and a few other little moments prior to that. This is a new and improved Kiryu. Yes, he's still crazy, but much more mental clarity than any time prior. And now he has combinations with the Nico Gaia style and Koei style, which are two of the most unpredictable, like, assassin-based styles in the verse. So
yeah.
Combining stuff like that would catch someone who's messing around off guard and land a deadly blow, which is what he did.
Yeah, I think Setsuna is probably one of the most dangerous fighters to fight in general out of majority of the verse. I guess when it comes to Nico goofing around, I think that's true for the most part, but I do think it was required for Nico to take him more seriously, because personally I think Setsuna was probably as strong as a worm head. Now, that's probably a huge hot take, but I think he got that much stronger over time. What I find very interesting, talking about him being a bit more level-headed, I don't think he uses the Fallen Demon anymore, because he probably associates that with, the manipulation that Nico got him, right? That would be my best guess.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, I think Setsuna was a pretty powerful individual. But in terms of that, looking at that situation, I think the bigger problem, right, if I were to put on, me wanting, Nico to look better as a villain, if I were to put that hat on, I would say, why not fight opponents at a time where he could dominate them to get that buff? Why is it that he's getting basically a high diff fight against Setsuna after one-shotting Mutemba in like KVP, right? It off screen too. And it's like, does that really help his portrayal? And that's really the bigger issue when it comes to Nico. It's the portrayal. So how would you go with that one? Because they'll be like, you know what, Mysterious Sweep, I'll give it to you. I'll accept everything you've said. But do you think this hurts his portrayal?
I would say it likely does. Like, if you think about it, if during the Kengan and Purgatory tournament, Nico is compared to Edward Wood, so most people came out of that arc saying, Nico, Edward, same tier, as strong as one another, can rank one stronger, maybe due to techniques, one stronger due to, like, strength and other aspects. Yeah. That's fine. We have a few time skips, a few arcs go past, Nico has finally a fight and it's against Kiryu and gets severely injured and, could be argued as a high diff. I wouldn't say it's that, considering it wasn't off screen and the main damage came from him when he was kind of still messing around. But regardless, it was a loss of aura and a loss of his perceived strength.
Yeah.
At that time, people would be like, Nico, yeah, of course, he's like top 3, top 5 in the verse right now. He shouldn't be having any trouble with Kiryu.
Yep, that would be what that is also what I think the problem was. I guess, how do I put this? I think Nico was probably slightly stronger than Edward in Kengan vs. Purgatory competition, but I think he should be much stronger than Edward at this point. It's been years since the Kengan Association versus Purgatory. But then you have the dilemma here of, on paper, Nico should be stronger than Edward at this point. And I think he is. But he's having a type of fight where I have people saying Edward is stronger than him.
Again, you could boil that down to people just not rating Kiryu appropriately.
Yeah.
Like, people just don't think Kiryu is all that. So, he could be like, well, we know Kiryu at that point could destroy Edward in the past.
Yeah, I think he does. But...
Yeah, so like... most people wouldn't say that.
Yeah, most people wouldn't say that. I think I am in the minority when it comes to that opinion, though.
A lot of people would say right now, Faye would beat up Kiryu.
Wow, there's no way.
Like I don't know why. I don't know why these people can't get over like the progression of time and like progression of all these characters. But Faye isn't close to relevant anymore.
Yeah, I guess so. Once we go through that, I think we need to talk about the alliance. The alliance between Nico and Shen Luhan, the GOAT, the real villain of this story. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a few more chapters.
Hey, listen. He will survive somehow, okay? I believe in my Lohan coins, okay? My stocks will not plummet. They will only increase from here on out.
It'll have a big increase and then it'll be this sliced in half to disappear forever.
Nah, fam, I'm not getting rug pulled. There's no way. Sandra wouldn't do that to me.
I will say... oh, he will.
Okay.
I will say the alliance at first was strange, but with the existence of Wulong and, let's say, connecting back to my overall view that Nico's ultimate goal is gaining power and being the strongest, he knows he can't take out Wulong alone, and the best bet he has is to work with someone like Luhan. So in that aspect, it's good, and as we've seen with the memory stuff now, it is allowing him to
do what?
Huge buffs in power as well.
Allowing him to do what?
Huge buffs in power that he will show at a much later date.
At a much later date, this man got deflected off of a panel that we can't even see him in like what? This week's chapter?
Yeah.
Bro.
Listen, it's only been 500 chapters of Kengan.
It's only been 500 chapters. This is our supposed final villain. My man's getting deflected off panel by Shen Wulong. I couldn't believe it when I saw it the first time. I'm like, I can see Lohan, but where's Nico? Bro, where is he?
Yeah, I was hoping Nico wouldn't even fight. I was like, oh, please, just watch. I don't need any more loss of aura. Just watch the fight. Don't do anything. Maybe commentate a bit, but don't get involved. And then he gets involved.
Can we actually call that
tough.
Involvement?
Well, he's, a fly on the side.
He's a fly on the side. Okay, being a bit more serious in terms of the alliance, I think it turned out to be, what? A match made in heaven or in hell? Because it turns out both Nico and Lohan are very similar to one another, which I find as a very interesting thing, because clearly everyone knows this alliance will not last. Yeah, this won't last. The question is who will get
We've seen Nico think in his head is like, oh, should I kill Luhan now? He
was thinking of doing it right then and there. He was like, I kind of see Lohan is doing better than me right now. So I should probably take him out. And you're like, wow, already. But the backstabbing aside, I think it's very interesting that when Lohan was first introduced into the story, the type of storytelling that at first was going on with him was very subtle, at least until he got slapped across the parking lot by Shen Wulong. Once that happened, I think most people's alarm bells started going off. Personally, I thought there was something weird going on with Lohan the moment I saw him, because he has too many red flags in terms of his character. Like, his suit design, literally, I think I pointed this out. I was one of the first people to say there's something wrong with Lohan here. Because, one, his suit looked like snakeskin. Have you noticed that? I was like, nah.
I did get that vibe.
Yeah, I was like, nah, this looks like snakeskin. And if you look at some of the drafts for when he is drawn, it has such a snake-like design, like or snake-like movements that he has. I wish they transferred it over to the official chapters. That vibe in which you get that, like, oh my god, he's a snake, right? But
there's a lot of stuff in the draft that like are seemingly better than the official chapters.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of the creative decisions, some of them I can agree with. I can be like, okay, I can see why you would do things that way. Others, like, for example, the thing we talk about now with Lohan, it's like, I don't know, it seems like such good storytelling without saying anything, right? Without like mentioning it that, oh yeah, this is what's happening with Lohan. But he's gone from really subtle to being really big, being like possibly the man behind Nico even having knowledge and coming to the worm in the first place. Cause like, without Lohan, I don't know if Nico would have as much resources to do the ghoul rituals. I don't know if that would have been possible for him.
As though, because Nico's connection to Wulong is very brief. Like, Wulong just keeps him around because, those experiments may be able to create a warrior that could fight me. Like,
yeah, he's funded. He's funded by Shen Wulong and the worm, basically. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, okay. You have Lohan being the introduction for the person who introduces him to the worm. Then you have, and this is where we're going to go with the competition, because with this alliance, I think it starts, I think Nico's getting the limelight in terms of how he's being portrayed. This is another case here where his portrayal isn't really doing him any favors in this situation. Because with Lohan, and this is what I ended up saying when he started revealing that, oh, he's the one who got, Mukaku to try to steal Oma, and Ryuki, he's done this and that. He also has the nukes that got them the memories. He's also done, it's like, wow, my man has W's. And then you look at his partner Nico, and it's like, okay, name for me 3 things this man has done for the Alliance. And all of them are called nothing. This man has done nothing but ask questions and ask for handouts. And I'm like, wow.
Very in character, using everyone else.
But at the same time, it's like, damn, Nico is carrying this alliance. Like, he's literally carrying it. And it's like, what was the point, Lohan? Why ask this man to join you? When really, when the rubber hits the road, this man can't even show up for you in a panel.
Man's just thinking at every second, maybe I should kill him now. He's like, okay, I'll team up with you.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure...
Kill the connector?
I'm pretty sure Lohan is probably thinking the same thing, because like, he tried to recruit... He tried to recruit Oma or Ryuki as well. And Oma's the one who he has like pretty sharp instincts, right? He's like, no. Ryuki gets mad, and Lohan manages to grab Ryuki's attention. Oma pulls him back, and he's like, don't go in there. Don't do that. There's something off about this guy, and it won't end well. And that is probably what I think is sort of like a threat, kind of, around Nico as well. It's just a matter of, okay, when are y'all gonna backstab each other? And who will be the better backstabber here? That is ultimately gonna be what the question is gonna be when it comes to that alliance. But what do you think?
I'll say, well, an interesting part is like Wulong and Yan, since the very beginning, are like aware of them, you know, working together to take him out, and like they still don't care until like now when it's a threat to like Wulong's current playmates like Omar and the others part of the Kangen Association. But the strange thing is, even when he pulls up now, he's like, "Oh, don't worry, Nico, I'm just here for Luhan," and like continues to disregard him over and over, and then in the fight we've seen, he's being disregarded right away. So it seems as though alliance-wise, Nico is going to be the first one to like just back out. Like maybe just during the fight itself, he'll just like leave. Like, good luck.
Good luck, Bozo.
I see that happening. Like next chapter within
That's
the
wild.
chapters, depending how long it goes. Like Nico just pieces out. Like, okay, thanks for the memories. I'll take that. Goodbye.
But wouldn't he would lose that leverage that Lohan provides him, right? Because the only reason, or at least one of the biggest reasons why Yan isn't just sending his boys in, and he's like, alright boys, go look for them, kill them, any means necessary. I'm going into Gilbert, send the Westwood faction, we're wrapping this thing up tonight. The reason that doesn't happen is because Lohan has the nukes. If Lohan gets out of the picture, it's like, well, Death Dealers is kind of done, right? And it's like, okay, Nico, he's probably gonna have to go into hiding at that point. I would say it's actually, it would be worse for him to abandon Lohan at this point.
Like, yes, I'll say that's true, but it's not impossible that Nico is forgiven by Wulong right away.
Yeah, but what do you think Yan is gonna do?
Wulong's character.
What do you think Yan's gonna do?
Well, Yan won't do anything that Wulong won't allow.
Nah. I feel like he'll be like, oh yeah, Wulong, you forgive him? He'll be like, oh yeah, fine, sure. Just goes, tries to poison him. Be like, fuck it.
Like,
get out of here.
Even right now, I don't think Yan is aware that Wulong is here taking out Luhan.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Yan has been wanting to take out Luhan over and over.
Oh yeah, he's been the guy. He's like, nah fam. He pulled out the claws when he saw him. He was like, okay, Lohan, anything else you gotta say? I'm going to kill you. So it's very interesting that Wulong came here. Although I think Wulong kind of views Lohan as his problem, as his mess, really.
Yeah, he's the cause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he's trying to deal with him himself. But I guess, I don't know. I don't think, even if, like, let's say Wulong were to forgive Nico, I don't know if Yan would give him the same funds, the same positioning, or even the same protection. It just turns out to be the worst case possible for him. Like, Lohan's dead.
Strange, but
yeah.
It would be strange if it went down that path, but I think it is possible. However, Nico taking the memories and going into hiding for an extent is something I could see happening, but that will still just be strange. Like, what's the point of this character if he's just going to disappear for a while again?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do with him.
Yeah. You mean, who's
It really
this?
depends, because...
Who are you talking about? Lohan or Nico?
What are they going to do with Nico, like, after this? Because if Luhan, for example, does get killed by Wulong and Nico survives...
Oh, it's a wrap.
What are they going to do with it? You think that Nico's done as well?
Yeah, because how does he insert himself back into the plot? Realistically, how would he insert himself?
That's the question.
Yeah, it's like...
I don't know.
You lose your only real ticket into the plot, because at least with Lohan, there's a connection there, right? It's like Lohan's specific drive is to kill Shen Wulong. Nico's interested in that as well, but he's not gonna, go in there and fight him himself. He's like, you got a plan, Lohan? Alright, I'll support it, and we'll see how this goes, right? So from that angle, he has an investment, but it's like, if Lohan dies, I don't think that investment is there anymore. I think surviving becomes the primary focus. And at that point, I don't know, maybe they would meet him again, kind of like what they did to Lu Tien.
I will say something fairly important is in Nico's character profile, which came out fairly recently, I'll say, compared to most others, it does say he's regarded more of a guest than like a strict subordinate of the Connector, positioning him as an equal in the future, which will be explored later in the story. So it seems like Sandro is more so confirming that Nico will be around and like an equal in a sense to the Connector somehow, some way.
Somehow, some way. I don't know. Let's. Do you have any closing thoughts on the Lohan and Nico alliance before we go into the future? Because I want us to talk about that as well. The future of Nico in regards to his potential and stuff. But any closing thoughts on the Lohan?
Do you think them taking on Wulong is too soon?
Yeah, I think they already confirmed that it was too soon. The fact that Lohan got rushed. Nico, he was like, when Nico came into the picture, Lohan was like, yeah, Wulong, you got me at a bad time, right? Like, Nico's all I have right now against you, and I'm gonna have to make do with what I do, right? And Wulong's reply to that is, it is the coldest panel I've ever seen of Shen Wulong. It shook my soul seeing that panel where he says pathetic. It was like, wow. It's like, I don't know, it felt like, how do I put this? Imagine disappointing your father like that. How that would feel. Like, I almost felt that for Lohan. I was like, man, Lohan, how can you keep a straight face? How can you smile when Wulong is just saying that? Like, wow. But what was the question again? Because I went into that entire thing. I think I was trying to answer a question.
Do you think the battle with Wulong is too soon? They should have waited.
They couldn't wait, and it was too soon. I think that's why I was mentioning that point. Well, Lohan himself admits that it's soon. Nico says that it's soon.
First, when
it is what it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When Wulong first pulled through the room and it was threatening Luhan and all that, if Luhan played it off without going into a rage after taking off the memory VR thing, I think Wulong would have left.
Well,
he's takes it off. It's oh, time to die, original. That's the first thing he says, pretty much.
There's a problem with that, and that is that, okay, there are two problems. One, they hate each other. They hate each other's guts, bro. These people, their beef goes so deep that I don't even think it's logical at this point. Cause I still think, till this day, the reason Wulong slapped Lohan way back during when they met the king in association still doesn't add up properly. Until this day. And it's wow.
Yeah, because in the draft pages, it was mentioned in a prior chapter that he threatened Joji, but we never saw that. I was only in the draft. So I don't know if
I looked at the drafts. I was planning to actually do a video on this. I looked at the drafts. There's nothing there. I can't read Japanese, but in the scenes where Lohan is in, he's not talking. The only person who comes close to threatening Joji is Wulong himself. That's the weird thing about it.
It is strange.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about it. Cause he says, what are you gonna do? Come at me? And it was in those black speech bubbles, right? So usually he has a more threatening tone. That's basically asking, what are you gonna do about it, Joji? That's aggressive. That's really aggressive. And we all
say him hitting Luhan then is taking out rage on himself to a degree.
Well, yes.
He threatened Joji, so I'll punch Luhan. That's a similar thing.
Well, I think I had a theory before we knew about Tiger and Wulong. I had a theory that Shen Wulong had multiple personalities because of that moment. Because nothing else makes sense. Because nothing in the scene suggests that Lohan had anything to do with it. And everything points to Shen Wulong being the cause. It's nah, this doesn't add up. I think, and now it's gone to the point where I think there might be a third connector as well. Because, do you remember the chapter where Lohan fights the consecutors?
Yep.
There's that moment where he has that little, is it aura? Where he has the 3 skulls. And he's blocking on the floor. I find it weird that it's
pointing to 3 connectors.
Yeah, because let's think about it in this way. We can see what 2 of the skulls could be: the Tiger DNA, Wulong DNA. Sure, that makes sense. What's the third one? That to me is what I'm thinking. Because as far as we know, the consecutors are made of a mixture of DNA basically. Because apparently Shen Wulong has different strands of DNA, which points to the potential that, I'm going on to another tangent, that Shen Wulong might be able to literally transform into Tiger somehow in the future. But that's really the issue with Lohan, in my opinion. But yeah, they hate each other. And then two, I don't think Shen Wulong would believe Lohan if he said, oh yeah, that's fine, I'll just go. I don't think Wulong is that naive.
He did give the option.
I think it was just a formality.
Like, it probably would have never gone that way. Yeah.
I think it was just a formality. Like, he was like, you know what, I'm gonna say it, but Wulong knows the type of person Lohan is. He was the guy who's like, yeah, this guy's a monster, he's a piece of shit. It's like, oh yeah, you think you're gonna tell him to buzz off and he's gonna be like, okay bruh. No, he was ready to kill him.
How do you think this situation will end?
I don't know.
Like, what's the outcome?
I don't know. Somehow...
What's your prediction? What do you want to happen, and then what do you think will happen?
Okay, somehow Lohan and Nico survive this. Somehow. Wulong...
Both of them.
Yeah, both of them. Wulong, he doesn't die as well. He just, skedaddles. And it was just an altercation. Yep. That, to me, is my best case scenario, in my opinion. What I think might happen, honestly, I don't even know. I think I'm only sticking with that because I don't believe Lohan's gonna die. Mainly because there is stake for Nico, but there's also the fact that the consecutors kind of told Oma about Luhan's weakness, and so that has to pay dividends somehow. And
yeah, you could say they wouldn't introduce the consecutors if it wasn't for something.
Yeah, or at least that plot point of like, oh yeah, Lohan has a weakness. It's like, okay, why is that? Why does that matter if Wulong's gonna come in and just, well, that's it. But at the same time, I can't imagine Wulong letting go of Lohan. I can't imagine it. I'm like, this dude hates Luhan. Like, I don't think there's a bigger hater out there than Wulong. How do you get Shen Wulong to let this man go? I don't know. Sandrovich, I don't know what he's gonna do. I really don't know. I can't think of anything.
Like, I want, as you probably know, Luhan to die.
Yeah.
Be the end of him.
Yeah.
Nico survives for a later point, and then Wulong leaves. We have his whole gauntlet, whatever fight with the Kangen Association next. That's what I want to happen. But I could see both of them surviving, and this, like, ensuring the consecutors point does lead to something with Luhan. I don't think Nico is dying whatsoever. Like,
yeah,
be a colossal disappointment.
Nico's not in danger. Well,
like, I would make a 5-hour long rant video if he was like killed off here.
Yeah, it would be bizarre, man. It would be, I would think it's a bizarre opinion, bro. I would be like, Sandrovich, I don't know what you were cooking with it. Cause I can defend Sandrovich's writing for almost anything. Almost is a very big word here. That would be one of the very few things I can probably not defend. Because I think Nico has a future. I just don't think, the trajectory is the same as like what most of the Nico fan base wants out of him. So that's really my opinion on that. But yeah, that's basically it. Any other points for the Shen, Lohan, and Togita Nico alliance? I think we've covered it mostly.
Yeah, I think it's complete. The two, you could say, main villains of, like, proper villains, you could say, teaming up. It's cool.
Yeah.
Just a matter of how long it's going to last for.
Yeah, like, they're so backstabby that it's almost like the fun part of the alliance is knowing that at some point they're gonna try to just backstab each other. And it's just a matter of when this happens.
When are they gonna fight each other?
Yeah,
like, if they do survive this, if both of them survive and leave together, they're gonna end up fighting. Like, we're gonna see that as well.
Well, it's a matter of when, right? Because they kind of need each other until Shen Wulong isn't that big of a factor. They kind of need each other for that. So I guess that's gonna be very interesting to see. Well, you probably think Nico's gonna come out ahead, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I think it's
invested.
too much invested. It's the stocks that are doing the talking now, eh? Even though they are plummeting.
It's a, buy when the thing's low or whatever they say.
Yeah. You buy when it's low so that, it's that type of logic. Alright. The big part of this discussion, really. The future of Nico. I think we kind of talked about this in terms of like the possibilities if Lohan dies and all this stuff, but how do you think Nico's story will go from here on out? From different angles, you can tackle it from any angle you want, really.
So, I'll say if Luhan is out of the picture and Wulong is out of the picture somehow, some way, that's when Nico will truly solidify himself as like the main and last villain, like the last evil against the Kengan Association. That's what you could say. If Wulong stays around, I think that could still be his role, but it would be still strange in a sense, as he technically wouldn't be able to do anything with Wulong around.
Okay, because
I will say...
Wait, just being on that point. Because to me, at first, when you were mentioning if Wulong is around, it almost as if it sounded like you expect Nico to surpass Wulong at some point. But do you think that it's possible that Nico could surpass Wulong?
I wouldn't say surpass. It's more like it's hard to say. Like, is Wulong really going to be defeated and killed by someone?
I think it's possible.
Or is he just gonna disappear, go back into the mountains and disappear?
I think it's possible that he could die. I think he has quite a few death flags.
Yeah, if he dies, it will be in a sense that Nico is just the strongest evil remaining, not that he's stronger than Wulong. Okay. I don't think Wulong's gonna be defeated in as in a fighter stronger than him.
You think he's just too powerful for that?
Yeah, I don't think I think the fight against the Kengan Association is gonna be multiple fights back to back, and even then he's gonna dominate all of them.
Hey man, that's tough.
The majority.
And you know what?
Even Oma, through all this training, is gonna be there's gonna be a clear difference.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is that it's believable that could happen. That he could literally face everyone and win. It's wow.
When he pulled up and was one-tapping all the random bodyguards and then facing Misasa, the personal bodyguard.
When they tried to jump him.
Those other two that were there, and just with weapons as well, and he just one-shot all of them, instantly. That's a tier of power, so many levels above everyone else we've seen. It's even now with what's going on, it's hard to believe anyone will be able to touch him.
Yeah, that's a very big issue that Sandrovich has with Shen Wulong, is that he's so powerful that how are you gonna write this man even struggling? How would you do it? Cause conceivably we saw him tap, you can't even jump him. You can't even jump this dude.
Yeah.
Every single attempt we have seen has failed dismally, which makes what Jan said about how the worm is actually meant to sort of suppress Wulong kind of sound like a joke. It's what are you gonna do? Gonna drop a nuke on him? That could probably work. Who knows?
And we're gonna get surpass the Bucky scaling if he tanks it.
Can you imagine?
Day.
Wasn't it who's this? The other fighter who came in with toxins and stuff during the Kengan Association.
Hanafusa?
Yeah, Hanafusa. He came in with that and he was threatening the worm. And I specifically remember Shen Wulong saying, "Oh man, that's gonna end up killing Yan."
Yeah, not even himself.
Yeah, and you know what I noticed about that the first time I read it? I was like, he's only worried about Yan. That means that he doesn't care about I think it's Fuzan is the clone that recently came, or at least the direct subordinate of Yan. I think his name is Fuzan.
Yeah, the other guy.
And Lohan, he doesn't care about them. That was the first hint that he didn't care. He didn't give a damn about them. I was like, wow. He thinks he's gonna survive. He thinks he can get out of that. It's just Yan, Lohan, and these other bums that are in trouble. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe he could take a nuke. And then finally, we can start talking about the Yunjiro thing. Which pisses off the Baki fan base so much. It's so funny to see it happen,
because
bro.
Technically speaking, no one has been nuked in Baki. It's only been statements. So if Wulong does get nuked and survives,
oh my god,
they're gonna be pissed.
Oh my goodness. You know what, Sandrovich? If you're listening, if somehow he's listening, just drop a nuke. Drop it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Luhan's ultimate sacrifice. Or maybe just go for it.
Yeah.
Maybe Luhan escapes and just nukes the place.
Yeah, that's it. But we were still talking about Nico before we went to dropping nukes. What were you saying about Nico?
Yeah.
Oh yes, the outcome that he probably won't surpass Shen Wulong is what you were saying. Yeah, you can carry on with that.
I will say, that for his character and role in the story to be complete, he needs to have a fight. I would say against Oma, but Kano would work, but I think it has to be Oma.
Okay, how do you see the conclusion of that fight going?
That needs to happen.
How do you see that conclusion of that fight going?
I could just see Oma killing him, but I have seen Oma death flags as well, particularly with him, teaching Koga or the Nico style or wanting to. But yeah, this Oma defeating him, I would hope is just the case.
Yeah, I guess.
And then we move on.
So let me ask you a question. What do you think the Tiger's vessel is to Nico?
The Tiger vessel or the Tiger within?
The Tiger's vessel. Because remember, that's been the biggest plot point around the character.
That's his thing.
Yeah, that's why they call him Tiger Nico.
I think it simply connects to the tiger side of Wulong, and that being you could say the evil side, but also the one with the more wild power, you could say. And getting access to that is what the true tiger vessel is.
How do you think Nico could get access to that?
It could be either through similar cloning methods they've been doing with Wulong, where he's the successor to a degree. We do have him, getting access to the memories, so something may come from that eventually, but it is quite strange. It seems like the tiger vessel stuff, while being all about him, has been taken away and it's always been Wulong's thing now.
Yeah. I still think it's relevant, but I'll save my thoughts, for later. Is there anything else you're thinking for Nico? In terms of the future?
We do need another flashback for him, how he became involved with the worm officially, to clarify stuff we talked about before. You could say that back during when Oma's master had the interaction with Kuroki in the past wanting his help, that may connect back to the other Nico somehow, where Kuroki could be involved.
That's interesting. But didn't Nico by himself beat Nico?
In the past?
Yeah.
What you're saying? Well, yes, but that was 15 plus years ago. So you would hope by this point, Nico has surpassed. You would hope. You would imagine so.
You'd imagine so, eh?
Years.
Are you sure?
Memory buff, you would hope so.
Memory buff. Oh man.
Hey, if you can, with that 15 years, and how he did land a fatal blow, you could say that Oma's master...
He landed a fatal blow on someone...
by many.
On someone who was already crippled, right? Oma already did damage to him.
He was somewhat injured from berserking Oma, but it's not like it was a high-tier fight with Oma at that point. It was a quick exchange and drop him, knock him out. And then the proper fight with the Nico versus Nico, and then Oma's master won, and then, Kiryu pulled up with Genzan.
Okay, so you're thinking possibly Kuroki Genzai versus Togita Nico. Potentially.
You have the reveal recently where Kiryu confirmed that, what we already knew, that Genzan was pretty much manipulated. So Genzan's death technically relates back to Nico as well, and Genzan was Kuroki's friend.
Hey, you connecting dots, eh?
There's the connection. There's the connection. It's possible.
Okay.
Kuroki has to do something. He had that little clash with Wulong. They're probably not going to fight again. Him versus Nico, that'll be hype.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would complain about that.
Who do you think would win?
Oh, can't comment.
Can't comment! Oh no, conflict of stocks?
I may be a Nico glazer, but
conflict
Kuroki
of stocks, it seems. You have a lot of investments.
Will always be there.
Oh god. That's very interesting.
Kuroki and Nico investments are too high. Can't, short any of them.
I see. That would be very interesting. The only fight that I have predicted for Kuroki is Lo Long versus Kuroki, cause like in Lo Long's flashback, Kuroki specifically was like, okay, look, we can just have a rematch later on. And so I think that the fact that that happened in the flashback in Kengan Omega means that we might see that. But I never thought of like Kuroki versus Nico. That's an interesting one.
I think it's a possibility. The two, like, older characters, you could say.
Yeah.
The previous generation.
Besides, like,
They're probably
Wulong.
around a similar age. Yeah, who's just like, thousands of years.
Yeah. Man is the oldest dude around.
I would say that, like, we know Kano's ultimate goal is a rematch with Kuroki. We know Oma wants to rematch Kuroki as well. So there's a lot of people who want to, fight Kuroki at this point.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that want revenge on Nico. We got Kano, who seems to be the most pissed every time he appears. So that could be something for Kano to do moving forward.
Do you think... Okay, I'm guessing you don't think Agito would be the one to take out Nico.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be the one. It'll be cool, but I feel like it more so has to be Oma at this point.
Okay, that's...
It's not impossible though. Like if it went down that way and Oma's sole focus is on like the Shenmue and other stuff related to that, that's fine. And then Kano's the one to deal with Nico, I guess that could happen.
Because technically he has suffered. Besides Setsuna, he's suffered the most because of him. Yeah. Although to be fair,
redemption.
To be fair, his life was pretty shit before. Like I don't know. It couldn't get any worse, right?
Wasn't bro like eating rats like a random sewer or something when he was found?
It's not just like a sewer. It's like a sewer that is between borders, between countries, dog. Like, we talking about abandoned in Russia in the cold. It's like, dog, you had nothing. You were lucky if you got a rat. I'm like, yo. I'm like, okay. Nico's like, oh, Nico came in and he saved me. I was like, oh my god, this man got kids.
Literally chucked him in a torture chamber.
And it's not that he did that instantly. He was like a father figure to him first. He trained him, and then
some guy Mikaku stuff.
And then boom, Gu rituals, bitches, go in there and kill each other, and that was it.
One thing interesting is, like, while the Gu ritual wasn't complete, Kano had already killed, like, everyone else in there.
Yeah.
Before he was saved by Mitsudo. Like, he was already chilling. Everyone was dead.
Yeah, I think the completion of the ritual is you trying to get out of the ritual. Yeah. Anything else for how you think before I start coming in with my wild theories?
Nah, I think I'm good for now. Go ahead.
Okay, brace yourself. Because to me, I'm gonna go out of left field. So let me just start with my expectations for Nico. Because there's a lot that I think is gonna happen to this character. And I don't think most people are gonna like what is going to happen to him. I think this man is going to lose to Wakatsuki, bro.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
interesting.
When that happens, that's not the end of his character, obviously. But I think there is a very deliberate build-up between Wakatsuki and the Nico users that I think has been building up to Nico at some point. So I think he will be, what's this? The fight between him and Nico will be one of the most important points in the series that will frame how people view him as a character. Because here's something interesting about Wakatsuki. Other than the fact that I think his last 3 fights that were pivotal, right? Like he's lost to 2 Nico style users, Agito and Oma, and then he drawed with another one. Besides that, when Oma faced Wakatsuki, remember when Oma was like talking about Wakatsuki's pressure, how he described it?
Comparing it to his master, was it?
Yeah. He directly compares Wakatsuki to Nico number 4 in terms of like pressure. Now, I think that's very interesting. That no one else has that comparison, not even like Kuroki Gensai or anything. It's like, oh, this reminds me of this specific character. How interesting would it be if the last Nico comes into conflict with that? Considering the last time he got his ass whipped, I think he's gonna get his ass whipped again by the same type of spirit. But I don't think that'll be the end. And that's mainly because there is still the Tiger's Vessels plot. And I think this is the most important plot point in the series, because I think it ties into who I think the final antagonist is going to be. I think the final antagonist or villain is going to end up being Oma. Okay, off of hearing that, what do you think? That somehow I've roped in Oma into this.
Mm-hmm.
So
it seems strange, but with the Tiger Vessel and Tiger Shen stuff, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So whenever I was trying to put together the theories for this, we know the Tiger's Vessel is meant to be, well, we know what a vessel is. It's meant to contain something. The original intent of the Tiger's Vessel is to host, of course, Tiger, the other part of Shen Wulong. That's the original intent. You talked about major death flags for Oma, but I don't think they're death flags. I think, because there's a problem with killing Oma a second time, and that is that you're doing it a second time. We already had an emotional send-off for the character before. Sandrovich probably cannot replicate that feeling again. And I think Sandrovich and Darrow, I think they're smart enough to know that. I think they're smart enough to know, hey, we probably can't pull that bullshit again. And so, rather than looking at those moments as like death flags, we look at them as a foreshadowing that at some point in time there's going to be a shift in Oma's character. Another reason why I think this is more likely than actual death is because Koga's entire goal is to fight Oma. Like, that was the goal from chapter 1, which seemed impossible until chapter 50, where this character just comes back. All of a sudden, the reason Koga will enter this story, his entire goal is right in front of him all of a sudden. So there's that going on with Oma. Then there's, of course, the fact that he's passing down everything that he is, in a sense that his martial arts. He's passing down that, and the spirit of that martial arts as well is what he's giving to Oma. And we also know that something bad is going to happen to Oma, because right after Edward Wu's defeat, we know Irio is the one who says, yeah, Ryan, you're going to need to keep an eye on Oma. Like, the worm are after him, there's something going on. I think that is probably what's going to end up happening. Now, final part of the theory. So the fight between Setsuna and Nico happens. And when Setsuna is about to win that fight, he goes on a little, he has a monologue, and then he has an internal thought. His internal thought is that by taking out Nico, he will manage to become a god. Now, that's a very interesting thing to think about, because when I talked about that moment, I was like, there's only really two ways this can happen, and that is that Oma is eternally grateful to Setsuna that he saved his life. But I think the other side of this is that Setsuna is taking out competition, and we know Setsuna has been investigating the worm from the notes that he has. He even has like a note that says false god on it. So I think Setsuna more than likely knows what's going on, and we have another hint of what could happen to Oma when Oma and Ryuki are rushing to the hospital to see him specifically after that fight. And one of the things that Ryuki talks about, I know this is a pretty long one, right? Like, I'm stringing together a lot of ideas, but
I'm getting deep.
Yeah, I'm going deep. Ryuki says that Gaio Mukaku sort of controlled the way that he thought. There was a sort of mind control and caging that he did with him. And he sees a parallel to himself and I think Akoya's girlfriend. I think that's what he says. What I find interesting is that Gaio Mukaku is mentioned there. I was like, okay, you have Gaio Mukaku. We've already talked about how I think the proper successor to Gaio Mukaku is Nico. And one of the biggest aspects of Gaio Mukaku was the manipulation aspect, was the mind control-like aspect that he had. And it's not like actual mind control. He's just manipulating kids as they're young. I think Nico's gonna achieve like a final form of that. And he's basically gonna pull a Kenjaku on Oma. And he's going to find a way to pilot him. And a funny thing happens when that starts to happen. You almost have a regression of Oma's character. Because in early Ashura, we had this dynamic. Remember the voice that was in Oma's head? And the thing that was egging him on to go further? Especially in his fight against Ryan, do you remember that moment?
More like the shadowy figure.
Yeah, a shadowy figure. That was, pushing him to use the advance, your life doesn't matter type of voice. And there was that huge conflict, like almost genuinely crazy in Ashura. I think Sancho Fish is gonna bring that back. It's gonna be like, we're going to have that regression to be like, yeah, Nico's gonna be, or Oma is gonna end up being like that. And in that way, he will no longer be the Oma that we know. And that will lead into him being the actual antagonist that Koga's gonna have to end up beating. But that's what I think. I think Nico as an individual fighter on his own is insufficient. And every single day that passes, or every single week that passes, it will only serve to prove this right. And the climax will be his loss to Wakatsuki. At that point, I think everyone will give up on Nico as a character. And then the Tiger's Vessel thing will start. But yeah, that is the craziness that I was cooking up. What do you think?
Hey, if that happened, that would be incredibly wild. It would definitely piss off a lot of people in the fan base.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people, enjoy current Oma. That would be a controversial path Sandro could take the story.
Well, why bring him back? To me, that was always the biggest problem. It's like, this was a beloved character. And yes, there's foreshadowing that he's gonna come back. But it's like, you can't kill him again. I don't think you can. But yeah, carry on.
So long Oma is the way he is, Koga can never truly be in the focus, properly, where he's taken serious by the readers.
Yeah.
So if to go down that path and not just kill off Oma in a, reasonable way that people would like, no matter what they do, that won't be accepted properly.
Do you think there's even a scenario
would work?
Do you even think there's a scenario where they kill off Oma a second time and it's just as good, if not better than the first time?
No. We're not even close. Whatever they do, I don't think it's possible.
Exactly. I think this isn't just an opinion you and me just share. I think everyone and their mom, if they read this series, would be like, yeah, you probably can't do that. But imagine him being piloted around like a corpse, knowing that Nico has basically because we know the Tiger's Vessel, the original promise of the Tiger's Vessel is that whoever becomes the Tiger's Vessel will inherit all the techniques. But we know that's false. Yes. We know that's false. And so I think it's actually in reverse. I think the Tiger's Vessel is Nico's inheritance. Mm-hmm. So that's what I think. But yeah, carry on with what you were saying.
It seems as though that you need the Shen Wulong genetics to gain that level of power, and Oma being the tiger strand of the genetics is the the true connection of being the Tiger Vessel.
I mean,
because Roki is the main side, you could say, the current side we see, while Oma is the tiger side.
Yeah, and Shen Wulong seems to have a lot of high hopes for Oma in particular. And just imagine this for a second. Let's say Lohan survives this ordeal and he gets all of Shen Wulong's techniques, and you're expecting him to be very close to Shen Wulong. That's exactly what Shen Wulong has said. But then Oma beats Lohan. What would that prove? It would be like, oh yeah, he's a success. He's the guy. Now imagine Nico's like, oh yeah, he is the guy. He's my dude. And then he pilots him. He pulls a Kenjaku. He's like, you know what? That cyber brain that has been in the plot somewhere, I'm bringing that shit back. We're doing this.
His son makes his grand return to talk about it after 300 chapters.
Yeah, because I still think it's all gonna be relevant. Like, he's not gonna I don't think the plot point is gonna just get dropped. Otherwise, there's no reason to start it.
There has to be a complete Tiger Vessel part of the story for it to even matter, because it was such a focus. Like, even in Kengan Ashura it was foreshadowed, mentioned the end of Kengan Ashura, the existence of Faye, Nico's whole purpose. There has to be something from it.
Yeah. But besides that part, what about the Wakatsuki part?
So, something funny that I've mentioned is from Ashura to Omega, Wakatsuki had no knowledge that Oma was alive, like everyone, or most people. And for some reason, he spent those 2 years training in the anti-Nico style tactics, using his advanced pre-initiative to know Oma was alive and that his first return fight would be against another Nico style user. So, him fighting the Tiger Nico is just the complete evolution of the Waka agenda.
Yeah, I guess that is pretty funny. Although we do see that Wakatsuki does have a habit of, after he loses, he kind of builds a tool to help him succeed if he runs into that person. Yeah. Which is kind of funny how one of those tools is now permanently gone, like the blast core is done. My man is all about that Phantom Fist now. And so it'll be interesting.
Also say, Kanna is a Nico style user as well, so...
Yeah, but remember...
The hate for it runs deep.
Yeah, the hatred runs deep, but in the narration where he comes back, there's literally a little hints that is like, yeah, Wakatsuki's probably never gonna fight Agito. Because the blast core was specifically made for him. And one of the reasons he's shelving it is that the narrator says he had an instinct that he was not gonna fight Agito. So, if you're thinking Wakatsuki is playing 5D chess, in real time, then that's a hint that if he's going to fight a Nico style user, and he's built up the tools to fight a Nico style user, there's only really, a few people left? It's probably not gonna be Koga. It's probably not gonna be Oma again. I don't think anyone is too thrilled to see a Wakatsuki versus Oma rematch. I mean...
I see people wanting it, but...
Yeah, but...
Wakatsuki has beef with a lot of people.
That's true, but wouldn't it be nice that one of the biggest problems that Wakatsuki faced in his fight against Fei Wangfang was the Divine Demon? I'm pushing this agenda right now. I'm trying to make you into a slight believer even if you don't like it.
Break down this for me. What do you think, for your theory, when do you think the, Wakatsuki versus Nico fight would occur from, the current point? How much in the future?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I'm not sure. I can only think of 2 moments during the final Annihilation tournament, or if there's going to be different fights in the fight against Shen Wulong, maybe there. But it would have to be at a point where there's enough time for Nico's plan to come into fruition. It can't happen too quickly or too close towards the end.
So do you think that right after this Shen Wulong versus Luhan and Nico fight is done, whatever the outcome, we're going to go into the Shen Wulong versus Kengan Association stuff?
It would depend on how much time left for training. Cause I think there's still a few months left. Although we could always just skip over that. I don't know if there's any relevant characters we gotta catch up on. I would like to see what Ray is doing. Cause Ray is probably one of the characters I've been wanting to keep an eye on, but he doesn't seem like he's gonna be relevant to the plot really anytime soon. And so, if we're looking at all the characters that are relevant, I think we might be done after this altercation. I would put my bets on it.
Are you of the belief that the new Annihilation tournament already set up will happen after Shen Wulong's Kengan match, however that's going to work?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. It has to happen at some point. I originally thought that it was going to happen with, of course, Shen Wulong, and that it was going to revolve around him somehow. But that's seemingly not the direction we're going in. And so, after Shen Wulong wins, because I think the prerequisite for having the worm being able to participate in the Kengan Annihilation tournament at all is that they have to be a part of the Kengan Association to begin with, and that means Shen Wulong has to win. Yeah, unless they already have companies that they're basically shadow bosses in, which I think is also possible. But if Wulong straight up wins, then I think that would give us a good segue into the Annihilation Tournament, because the Worm probably wants to overtake the Kengan Association already. And we know there's already an Annihilation Tournament, brewing. So that would be the line of events. I don't see any other arcs just happening after that. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
I would say, in line with your theory, if Nico does take over Oma and he says, or he becomes like, let's say, evil Oma, if that evil Oma, let's say, participates in the New Annihilation Tournament in the future after like all these other wild events, that would make sense. And then within that tournament, we have Koga defeat him.
Yeah.
That could be something that like, because if Wulong loses and that whole story point is like complete, and then we like build up the New Annihilation tournaments, the only reason like Nico would be involved at all, or would be allowed to be involved, if you go down like the theory you said where he takes control of Oma.
Well, yeah, it is kind of weird now that I think about it.
Because why would they let any of the Worm members participate if like they're not in control due to Shen Wulong victory?
Yeah, they would need to, as I said, they might be shadow bosses of the companies that are already in the Kengan Association. Because there's at least some hints that I think it was Hanayami, right? The old man with the scar, the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hanayami has like 2 clone kids. The first one is, of course, Meguro. The other one is his daughter. Like, I think that's the reason why she has the unique ability that she does to basically hypnotize men. Is probably because she's not like a normal human being.
Yeah.
So if that's true, then you could have connections that run deeper, and maybe the Worm kind of slide in that way, maybe. But I think the easiest way to just have this done is, look, have Shen Wulong just win, and that be it. Because like, logically speaking, the stakes aren't really that high if the Worm wins. Because yes, Oma and Ryuki
Wulong is really about, it's not
it's
the
not,
most danger.
Yeah, it's
as we previously thought.
Yeah, because like, yes, Oma and Ryuki's bodies are kinda on the line, right? But it's like, if the matches go well enough, Wulong will just be like, oh, don't worry, there's no rush. At this rate, all of y'all might become as strong as me one day. Isn't that fun? And he just sticks around. And it's like, okay, so problem solved, I guess. And that will be it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's personally what I think. I think Nico's he's gonna pilot. He has to pilot. Because like, this was one of the craziest things about Shen Wulong. If you think about it, let's say you were to say Shen Wulong is the strongest, right? I think that's undisputed. But let's say you were to also say Lohan is the second strongest. In this hypothetical, Shen Wulong is so powerful that this man basically occupies 2 slots. One of them it's actually him. The other one is literally his clone. And it's like, okay. And then probably if you have Oma in your top 10, you have Shen Wulong occupying another slot. And it's like, oh, come on. It's literally the same guy, copy and pasted. And it's like, okay, can Nico really compete with that? With someone so strong that he could basically occupy multiple slots in the top 10 strongest? Through cloning, of course.
Yeah, likely not.
Yeah. Or just take one of the kids and be like, alright, fine. I've become Shen Wulong at this point. Surely nothing can go wrong. And then Koga comes in.
I'll say your theory, considering like what Kengan's been going with, isn't impossible. It's a possibility. Like, I don't think it'll go down that way, but it's not impossible.
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
Yeah, but my main concern really is because I don't think Nico would go down to any of his previous, abuse victims. I don't think that's how that's gonna work. I don't know. Like, the fact that Setsuna failed, I think is proof that, probably no one's gonna be able to actually beat him. Because at the same time, he sort of evolved past them in that weird way. Oma, it's a gray area because of course he's literally the clone of Shen Wulong. But I could see it being the same with Agito, where it's like, yeah, you might have the right by grudge. but I'm beyond you at this point. I've evolved, I've used you basically. And so because of that...
What do you think Kiryu's role will be moving forward?
I think he's done.
Done? That's it?
That's it. Because realistically...
He did that menacing look after talking to Omar when people were memeing.
Oh man, that was a rough one. Here's the thing with Setsuna. Setsuna seems like he's done. Seems like he took his best shot and he realized I'm not killing this guy. Now, he is important because he's actually the two most important characters that are guarding Oma. So, other than Kure Ryan, who Uryo specifically said to him, bro, you need to watch over Oma. This guy is in trouble, right? Which is one of the death flags, of course, that people are gonna be like, that's a death flag. Ryan is one of the people that are supposed to protect him. The other person is Setsuna. Setsuna, when Oma was like, yeah, I got a feel, when he was about to pass down his martial arts to Koga, Setsuna literally said, hey, as long as I'm around, you're not gonna die. Or nothing bad is gonna happen to you. All of a sudden, it seems like him trying to assassinate Nico gets fast-tracked a bit, and then now he's pretty much done. He's almost out of the picture entirely, because like he has to focus on recovering. The only person that is left, of course everyone loves Oma, right? But like the only person who's left is Ryan, and Ryan's kind of occupied with an entire war between clans.
Yeah, people forget that's still ongoing in the background.
Which I think is the worst plot point in Kengan Omega, by the way.
Definitely a big opportunity and they missed to focus on it more instead of like, not even full panels, it's like bottom of panels when they've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah.
Like little boxes.
My problem with it is that it's not even a war. Like, I don't know how you'd interpret this as a war when the Westwood faction has been sustaining most of the damage. At least to us. I don't know.
From what we know.
I mean...
It's like, quite strange.
Well, how about this? Although the Westwood faction heads get killed off in Kengan vs. Purgatory, including the big head, Edward Wu. Like, all 5 of them gone. Whew, it's over. Then there's infighting among the Westwood faction members. There you have a lot of leaders dying in the power struggle. Gilbert comes out on top. And it's like, then you have the casualty of William and Sean dying to Kure Ryan. Okay, now let's look at the other side. Yeah, now let's look at the other side. They've lost a random Wu Clan member that we don't even know. And they've lost Kure Uryo. That's it. The rest are fodder. I don't know how the Westwood faction is able to compete against the other 2 clans. How many people does the Westwood faction have? They have to be a stupid amount. Because they've sustained so much, especially in leadership. I don't know. I'm like, nah. To me, if you look at it from that angle, it's like, I mean, come on. How are you not just outright losing? Why is this not just called a massacre?
Like Sandro has messed up the Kure vs. Wu Clan dynamic quite a bit since Edward's death.
Yeah, the only W we see one picture of, and no one of significance dies, by the way. That's why
All we get is Gilbert edgy monologue.
Yeah, personally, I think it's the worst plot point. I think it's like, wow, I don't know what's happening with that one. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
One thing we didn't really mention that much, kind of related to Nico, but after the Akoya and Kiryu fight with them, when they're talking to Yan's raging out at them, there was a panel of Nico looking menacingly at Yan, a focus on him. It's like, oh yeah, looks like he's gonna pull up on Yan one day and kill him as well.
I think
I ended up pointing out at some point.
I think he just realized that he's a bum, and he was just pissed at it. Because technically speaking, they shouldn't have lost that. On paper, it should have been, you should be reporting, oh yeah, we ran into these guys and we just killed them. That should be the story.
Yeah.
That's not the story. It's like, bruh, Yan is there.
Yan will be doing. He's threatened Nico, he's threatened Luhan, he's threatened Gilbert, and Wulong kinda listens to him.
Yan is in a very interesting spot, because technically speaking, he runs everything, but
yeah,
at the same time, it's like he has next to no control of what's happening. I think that's really the weird thing with Yan. And I don't see him being tied to a specific plot point as well, other than trying to take over the Kengan Association. Like, that's really it. That's what Yan wants to do. That's what I expect to see from him. That's the agenda I see him pushing. And I see him somewhat succeeding in that. Now, in terms of potential fights in the future, I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him, because it seems like he's going to be a much better version of Zai Ji, obviously. He just doesn't have all the talents. He'll just have like the hard work, the dedication, and all this stuff. It's just a question of who does he fight.
As well, he's been trained by Wulong like over the years, because Wulong chose him as the next head of the worm. They've been together since he was a kid.
Yeah, but
it seems like there's more to their dynamic that we haven't really explored really.
Yeah, they're friends. I think he's closer to, well, let me not say he's closer to anyone. Yan and Joji are probably the closest friends to Wulong, because we do know like him and Yan are cool. They go out, they play games. That's what they do, right? They're homies in that way. Joji's a homie in that way as well. It's just that Yan is more.
It does seem like Yan is like a babysitter to a degree as well at times.
Yeah, he's a babysitter, but he also knows the type of danger that Wulong kind of poses. So it's like having a dangerous mutant baby, which is weird, but that's just how it is with him.
With the like whole Nico stuff, I could see Yan, like let's say Luhan is killed by Wulong in this battle, Nico escapes. I could see Yan being the one to seek out Nico to take him out and finish him.
Oh no, that would be, unless Nico takes over Death Dealers and has control over the nukes, Yan is going to hunt this man down with everything. Bro, the Westwood faction, he won't care what beef they're doing. Get this man Nico. That's gonna be what he's gonna do.
One issue with that though, it seems as though like Nico and Gilbert are closer than what Yan and Gilbert are. And Gilbert's alliance isn't with like the worm, it's viewing Wulong as a god.
Yeah, but he's kind of a wormhead. So he kind of needs to do what he's told.
If it's Wulong, it seems as though it's being set up that Gilbert is there because the Westwood faction view Wulong as a god. Nico is there because Wulong doesn't mind his experiments. While Yan is the head of the worm, technically, he doesn't really have control over the other heads.
I think he has some control. It's just things have gotten out of hand for him. But either way, let's say sending the Westwood faction turns out to be a dud. He still has a pretty large, info network that he could work with. I don't think it'll be hard for him to find Nico at all. Like Lohan and Nico, they're not even trying to hide that much.
Yeah.
And Wulong was like, "Oh yeah, I just found you." Like
so
Yan.
What if Yan, like, he does find him, but Yan is the one to fight Nico, and he ends up dying in the process.
That would piss off Wulong.
That's where Wulong, comes out with actual rage.
Yeah, he would die. He would die shortly after. Like, if you kill Yan, really it's over. It's already over. It's just a matter of when Wulong gets that news. The day Wulong gets that news, you're done.
I think that could be something interesting.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Yan is a bit too careful to put himself in that situation. I think he's too careful to let things go to that situation. But
I just feel as though we need more. We need something for him to do.
Yeah, I mean,
because he was meant to be like that guy, that mysterious head of the worm figure, but then Wulong just took all the shine away because they were introduced together.
Yeah, I guess I still think Yan is probably one of the strongest characters in the series. So I think whenever we start to see him throw hands, it will be spectacular. But
like the one moment we did see when he was clashing with Kano, he did nothing. Dealing with Kano with no problem at all, while focusing on Kano wasn't able to do anything, but Yan was more focused on how did they get here, who betrayed us, working out as Luhan. So he's fighting with Kano while thinking about that and being fine. So he's very clearly top tier. Yeah,
he's probably, again, as a head of the worm, I would say all the worm heads probably relative in power. It's just a matter of who you think is stronger than another. but like they're all as strong as one another. And well, not now. I think that's probably changed recently because like
You could
everything
say
is changing.
Nico now with the memory stuff. The memory stuff is changing, yeah.
Yeah,
Like right
which would
now,
be
you could
very
say
interesting.
Number 1 in the verse, Wulong. Number 2, Luhan, and number 3, Nico.
You would say Nico's 3?
Well, with the memory buff, you could easily say that.
I don't know, man. I mean, look, if this man has been
Is-
getting classes from Shen Wulong himself for much longer, I mean, we saw what happened when Wulong gave Koga just a short class. Man has a technique.
10 second.
Yeah, man has a technique where he could basically hit you before you move.
Maybe Yan is that guy.
Hey, I'd say he probably is, but we'll see what happens. But a clash between him and Nico, I think in the scenario where Lohan dies, I think it becomes a lot more likely because Yan will probably just try to tie up every loose end. If he gets the nukes, I would say Nico is on a very short, time. It's just a matter of time before he dies.
That's how I see it going. I see Luhan being taken out, Nico surviving, and then we have a Yan and Nico plot point for a while.
Okay.
While Wulong focuses on like Kengan Association having fun.
Okay, so you think that happens in the background of Shen Wulong's fight? You just have the side plot of Yan going to try and kill Nico?
Well, it could because there's still potential months of training for the Kengan fighters. Like, let's say Luhan's taken out, Nico escapes. We could be seeing the Kengan fighters still training, final preparation for the Wulong match, which could have the Yan and Nico stuff in the background playing out as well. And even the Gilbert and Ryan stuff playing out. That's still a thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, that's still... I wonder when that clash is gonna happen, bro. Like, it's very interesting.
I was thinking it would occur alongside Oma vs Shen, but now that it seems like Shen's having multiple fights, I don't really think that'll be the case now.
Yeah, because I don't think you could get both of them to go like on a stage and have like a proper match. I think like it would be too bloody. Like this is an entire war going on. I wonder how you could ever calm these two groups down unless like Shen Wulong and a few notable figures do it. But like that would take a lot.
It would be like not background, but like on their own in a random street or like it's a random location, just them two going at it. That's how I see it happening. No one else around.
But why wouldn't they bring the forces? Because like it was a full-on war when it was with Edward. Which, by the way, the whole purpose of the Kengan matches is to prevent situations like this from happening. It's literally to stop wars from happening. And it seems like that's exactly what's happening with the Kure clan here, or the Wu clan.
I just get the sense because both of them are so bloodthirsty for one another that the second they interact again, it's gonna occur no matter what.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough thing to see how that one gets handled. But anyways,
like if Gilbert pulls up watching Shen Wulong fight everyone and Ryan is there watching as well, they're gonna fight if they're in the same place.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gilbert would want the smoke more importantly, because like Gilbert has taken an L in the form of, Sean and William's heads. So I could see him wanting to throw hands and be like, okay, look, I'm avenging my henchmen. And Ryan's like, yeah, that's basically it. But anyways...
There you go. The ultimate yap session about Tokita Nico. The last Nico. Number 6.
Anyways, yeah. Have you got anything else? Because we went on a lot of tangents when it comes to this. Anything you think we probably missed?
One thing. Do you think Nico uses the advance, Divine Demon, or something else?
It's Divine Demon.
You think it's Divine Demon?
Yeah. Again, I think
it's the advance.
I think so. Remember, I have my Wakatsuki stocks, and
Yes.
it is convenient for me for him to have Divine Demon, because then Wakatsuki has a chance at redemption. Because when he faced that thing the first time, bro, it was horrible. This man was getting absolutely destroyed. And if he fights Nico's the only person really who could have that technique. There's no one else. And the fact that when he fought Setsuna, we didn't see exactly which one he used, makes me think it has to be either Divine Demon or something that might be a step above that, but I doubt anything gets better than the Divine Demon, really. I think it's that, in my opinion.
You can only hope Sandro invests in Waka's future.
And nah, he will, bro. See, the Phantom Fist, bro, Nico's never gonna see them coming, bro.
Not comprehend.
He won't be able to comprehend.
Waka already went to the Nico forest. Bro's being prepping.
Yeah, too many connections to him trying to fight against the Nico invasion, bro. He saw that there was a Nico problem, and he's like, look, I'm gonna solve this. My man is literally the symbol of the Kengan matches. He can't be going down to all these Nikos.
Always has been. The Waka agenda.
Yeah, so that goes to the moon. But yeah, besides that, I think we're more or less done, right?
Yep, I think covered everything.
I think we've covered everything.
How many chapters do you think Omega has left to conclude?
I have no idea. The main reason why is because if we get a Cats 2 with as many characters as we have now, because we have a stupid amount of characters, and we have a lot of them that might be going into the S tier, you have all these, there's just so much happening here that it would take a long time for this to be fleshed out, man. So I think like I
think we have another 300 chapters halfway through Omega.
My lord. Yeah.
Very bold to say, but I see it happening.
Yeah. We have just so many characters, which is one of the reasons why I'm also worried about Kengan Omega getting animated, is because like they seem to take shortcuts wherever they can, which is why maybe some scenes
likely be cutting a lot.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of cut content, and I don't know if they'll end up cutting stuff that turns out to be important. It's gonna be very interesting to see how they handle that. And then you have characters like Nicholas, for example, that only appear for like a short time, for like one arc, and my dude is gone. It's like, are they gonna look at that and be like, you know what, we're cutting that content? Although it does depend on how long they're gonna be planning to animate the series, but
we still have no information about that, unfortunately.
Yeah, but hey, I think it's gonna be a while. I can't even comprehend how long this thing will take. I really can't. 300 chapters, I would say it's a lot of chapters, but man, Sandrovich could take it there. With the amount of characters we've got and how much depth he could choose to go down with this. Although at the same time, we do see him opening other series as well. So
yeah, which is a concern.
Yeah. Okay, from what? Yeah. From what perspective do you think it's a concern?
I think, like, focus writing-wise, people have had issues with Kengan Omega for years at this point, and it's all boiled down to the writing for the most part. So him focusing on 3 series simultaneously would likely cause more issues.
I mean,
that's my main concern.
I mean, I think it might also be a sign that he plans to wrap up Kengan Omega sooner than we think. Even though I think the Annihilation Tournament should be a pretty long arc, on top of the Shen Wulong arc at that. It's like, okay.
And there's a lot to be complete, and that requires a lot of chapters if they're gonna do it well.
Yeah, it's gonna be something. But if he's just planning, I'm just gonna try to wrap this up, and then people have a jumping off point. Either that, or he just wants to write something else because he just doesn't want to write Omega for a bit. Or at least he doesn't want to solely focus on Kengan Omega. That could also be it as well. Where he's like, man, let me at least watch. I imagine
he's way ahead as well.
Yeah.
Like with plot points and like the outline of the story that the team works on. I'm imagining he's way ahead already. So he probably has a lot of spare time considering he doesn't do the art.
Yeah. But yeah, what are you thinking of his spin-offs?
Kengan Omega is the money maker for Sandro, and it is the top series in the magazine or the online website it releases in.
I think it's in the app. I think they use an app to.
Yeah, it's on an app and a website, and it's the top series on the website.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like the One Piece, but One Piece equivalent for that specific website, like the top series that people go to it for. So it's the money maker in a sense.
It's the cash cow.
Even on Comic-E, people only go on that for, or the majority only go on it for Kengan Omega.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe
that's how they started it.
I see. What do you think of the other spin-off series? Because I know he has 3. I've only really read Star and Blue something.
Star, I've read the first 20 chapters. It's not bad. It's not for me particularly, but I don't really care about the female protagonist that much, but it's good from what I've read. The new one, I've only read the first chapter. I think there's like 3 or 4 out now. It's okay. It's like pro wrestling based again, but female protagonist.
Yeah.
He does have How Heavy Are the Dumbbells You Lift, which is finished, but that was like a comedy manga he did that finished I think last year. And then there's Fist of the Seeker, which is his like first work. That's technically ongoing, but probably not gonna ever continue.
What? It's technically ongoing?
Yeah, there's no end to it officially. There's like a part 2, but there's been nothing new in this.
Oh, okay. It's pretty much dead then.
Yeah, I think Kanga's blown up focusing on that.
Yeah. I guess with Star, I think it has yet to beat the Gunnar allegations. That's what I think. I mean, it has pretty good fights, but I'm like, nah, fam. Especially with, I think it's the latest fight that is out right now. Man, I watched that and I was like, oh, okay, I see how it is. I guess
the art is good. I'll say that. The art is better than Omega. Actually, in certain panels I've seen at times, it goes quite crazy.
Yeah, I think, I would say so. Although it seems like it's a tad bit more polished than with Kengan Omega, because Kengan Omega, it's a little bit of a weird situation what's going on with it, because they have like the volume releases, and I've seen the art for the volume releases tends to be a bit better. Yeah, it tends to be better. So
the release on like Comic-Key and like on the website is like not the draft, but like the quick version. Most, like even Jujutsu Kaisen, when it was coming out, the volume releases tend to look like many times better.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, I guess that's what's happening with it. But what? The other one, what is the other one called? The one that starts with blue?
I don't know its name. I just call it the Female Pro Wrestler series.
Yeah, the Female Pro Wrestler. It's interesting. I mean, that's all I can say about it, really. I'm not too big on the delinquent type of series. I don't know. That's not my thing. Yeah. Which I find a bit odd, because it is the closest thing you get to a martial arts fighting manga. Like, it's really close. But I don't know. Something about that school setting. But yeah, we have yapped for a while. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was 3 hours.
Hopefully the people enjoy.
Hopefully.
The greatness of Nico. Hopefully our investments pay out.
Actually, I am praying. You know what? I don't even need to pray, technically speaking. I'm so confident that I'm going to be drinking your tears soon that I'm not even going to ask God to be on my side. I already know.
You just need to worry about Luhan first. He's not looking too good.
Yeah, but you know what's gonna be interesting? If he survives that encounter, that's gonna be another reason to dunk on Nico.
It is.
But anyway,
Hopefully Wulong doesn't mess up.
Oh yeah, you better pray something, or he carries on with what he's doing, with trying to kill Lohan. But yeah,
this is only 1% of my power.
I wouldn't be surprised, bro. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, at this rate, like, what was very interesting is that, I mean, we all know he's the strongest, but every single time this man fights, it's amazing. I'm always taken by surprise. I don't know. There's a way that he's written whenever he fights that's like, wow. Like, he's that ahead. It's like every single time. I mean, it is what it is.
Ultra interesting type stuff in the recent chapter.
Yeah. Like, I talked about it in my review and breakdown. Like, he backhands Lohan when he was trying to stab him. And then he seems confused. He's like, oh, sorry about that. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are you apologizing? Like, did you not mean to do that? Did you just hit him? That's why you can't get jumped. It's like, bro, you literally have, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of the many techniques. Because this man probably has thousands of years of techniques, and just one of them is just, oh yeah, Ultra Instinct. The 37th Wulong just mastered Ultra Instinct. There you go. Now everyone has it. It's like, okay.
We literally have people looking at his memories and like going crazy and almost falling unconscious.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is some crazy shit. But in terms of like his martial arts, do you think it should end with Nico and Lohan in terms of people that have access to some, if not all, his martial arts?
I think it could be passed down even more. There's a question about what Yarn knows still.
Yeah.
If he has been trained by him and spending all this time. And even like the comparisons Kurei Ryan got with the Connector and like the principal stuff.
Yeah, man, I was so hyped for that. I was so hyped. I was like, oh yeah. I'm deflated when I saw the last chapter. I was like, yeah, that's probably just Sandrovich is just messing with me. There's no way Ryan's like, is this good? There's no way. I don't think he's close. I was like, oh, maybe, you know. I was like, nope. This man's in his own, he's in his own planet. He's in his own galaxy at this point. I'm like, nah.
Really?
But yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, that's basically it. Anyways, thank you for coming, Mysterious Weeb. I can tell you're already tired. I sort of exhausted all your stamina on just yapping. Yeah, it is what it is. Thank you very much, man.
No problem. Anytime.